So, tell us about your furry friend here. What's his name?
Oh, this? This is Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
It's not just a cat, he's family.
Quite a name, and I must say, looks quite pampered.
Oh, absolutely. Bitcoin deserves nothing but the best. He's my little prince.
But with such a valuable pet, aren't you afraid of losing him?
Losing Bitcoin? No, it never happened before, so it's not something I worry about. Excuse me for a moment. Bitcoin, stay here, right?
Bitcoin, no! Bitcoin, come on, little buddy, Bitcoin, I need you. Don't go.
Security matters. Zappo Bank. The only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
Some call me Chicken Little, others Bubble Boy. I'm a bit changed, but sounds familiar, right? Let me tell you a hard truth. The S&P isn't rising, the dollar's falling. That's the trick, monopoly money. It's ice melting by the second. Your savings, your salary, your time. Worth less every second. Everyone's using the wrong measuring stick. Switch the denominator. Price the S&P into Bitcoin. Hard, fixed, unprintable. Suddenly your unstoppable index, it's collapsing. And while you cling to dollars, well, Wall Street already switched. Before, you needed 2 brokers.
Still getting my ninja bonus though, right?
Plenty of spreadsheets. And my quant!
I hate this part.
I was right, and I'll be right again. If I were you, I'd thank me.
You know my name's Dave, right?
Hello, everyone. Happy, merry, almost Christmas. My name is Walker America. Welcome back to RoxomTV. This is my usual Tuesday show where I stream to you live from 1 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on RoxomTV. Today, we may have a couple of guests, or it may just be me. After all, it is getting to be that Christmas time of year. People are understandably spending time with their families. I am going to be doing the same after this stream, but for now, I am here with you guys. So where are we at right now? We're heading into the end of the year. As it relates to Bitcoin, I think that, let's say, expectations perhaps were not met for a lot of people this year. You've got Bitcoin currently sitting at 87,479 infinitely printable US dollar fiat cuckbucks per coin. And I think that, if you look at where we started the year, basically right now, Bitcoin is down 8% this year, in the past year, basically. So we're down on the year. And you look over at the chart for silver, and I've got to say, I did not have it on my 2025 bingo card that silver was going to have a chart that looked honestly more like a Bitcoin bull run, or maybe a shitcoin bull run. I'm not quite sure. Silver is currently sitting at $70.81 per ounce. That's pretty wild. It started out the year around about $30 an ounce. Gold has had a fantastic year as well. Gold is currently sitting at $4,477 per ounce. Now, of course, if you zoom out a little bit, right, you zoom out more than just this 1 year, and you look at the charts of Bitcoin versus gold or Bitcoin versus silver, it tells a very different story, right? But if we're looking in a very high time preference time frame here, just looking at the last year, it's Bitcoin's performance has been disappointing would be an understatement, right? I'm not going to lie though, guys. I'm still incredibly bullish. I think that we still have, I don't know if the cycles ever existed. I've kind of gone back and forth in this quite a bit now. And I'm at the point where I'm just viewing this as a fantastic stacking opportunity. And I know that Bitcoin's going to do what Bitcoin always does, which is rip your face off when you least expect it. So let's see what happens. For now, let's congratulate the silver bugs and the gold bugs. They deserve a little win. After so much time spent basically just treading water versus fiat inflation. So we'll let them have their little day in the sun. It's going to be quite interesting going forward. I think that we are going to have there's a lot of talk about the end of this year being a time when there's going to be quite a bit of volatility, and whether that goes to the upside or the downside for Bitcoin, who can say? As of Friday, this coming Friday here, the 26th, there are $23.6 billion in options that are set to expire on Friday. So that's a pretty massive amount. So it's, again, $23.6 billion of Bitcoin options contracts are set to expire Friday, December 26th. That's on the Durbin exchange. So this is going to be one of the year's largest derivative expirations and a potential market reset moment, as some are calling it. Now, this total represents more than half of Durbin's open interest. So the event could obviously have a bit of a broader market impact. Now, some of the market positioning going into this expiration has showed a bit of a bullish skew. Data is pointing to a put-call ratio around 0.38. So more traders are holding call options, bullish exposure than puts, bearish exposure. And analysts have been noting that with large options expirations like this, they can act as a volatility catalyst, obviously, especially late in the year. There's a little thinner liquidity around the holidays. Maybe people are trying to do some tax loss harvesting as well, which I think also contributes a lot to that volatility, especially as we get into the end of the year. And so this kind of thinner liquidity combined with all these expirations is going to probably lead to a little amplification of price movements, whether that's to the downside or the upside. Traders are going to adjust. They're going to close or roll positions into future expirations. Now, there's let's put it this way. Bitcoin is always volatile when you measure it in US dollars, right? Now, if you are not a trader, you're just a stacker, and you have just been saving dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin, you're probably not too worried. In fact, you're probably pretty excited because your dollar cost average has been buying you more sats. Each of those regular purchases that you make have been allowing you to acquire more sats than they otherwise would when Bitcoin is pumping. That's a great opportunity, right? Now, if you are a trader, I myself am not, terrible trader. Sometimes I like to trade a little bit just to remind myself how bad of a trader I am. But for those that are trading, there's a lot of money to be lost around this time of year. So the max pain level at which most options are going to expire worth less, is set at near 96,000 for Bitcoin. So they're looking. Some of these analysts are looking at this as a bit of a magnet for price movements. Now, this is what the max pain level means. Is basically it's the level at where options buyers stand to lose the most money. And option sellers, usually the big institutions, market makers, are making the most profit. So let's see what happens here. There's undoubtedly going to be volatility going into the end of the year. I think it's also, I wouldn't mind a little Santa Claus pump. I'll be honest. I think that would be nice. We're sitting here again at around 87,000, 88,000 US dollars per Bitcoin. I think from all of the price predictions that people saw, and this is a great reminder that price predictions are a lot like, well, let's say they're a lot like assholes. Everybody's got them and they all stink, right? So, people are notoriously bad at predicting what's going to happen in the future. And as we look into the end of this year, I think this should be a great reminder to people that nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody, including me, definitely not me. I have zero crystal balls. It's a great reminder that the best thing that you can do is stay humble, stack sats, try to create value, focus on your craft, and not get sucked into either insanely bullish or insanely bearish sentiment. Now, I remain insanely bullish. This is more so saying that, price targets are cheap. It's easy to make them. People rarely ever walk them back Shout out to actually Alex Thorne, who's been on this program a few different times, because he did update his price targets repeatedly throughout the year as new information emerged. And so, at least he had he had the foresight and then also the honesty to basically say, look, I've updated. This is not how I think the year is going to end up anymore. So let's see what happens. I think the thing that I'm really tracking right now is that underneath all of the bearish sentiment that I've seen in the market recently, and that bearish sentiment takes many forms. One of the things that I think has been a bit of a weirdly bearish narrative for people to kind of glom onto recently has been all of the quantum FUD. We're going to get into some of that quantum FUD later. Some of it's not FUD, right? Like, for example, we know that Bitcoin is going to need to make some upgrades to be able to handle the threat of quantum when that actually does really materialize. But some of the discussion around it has been just more FUDdy, and we'll get into that a little bit later. There's also just been, I think, a broader feeling of malaise throughout the kind of the market. People have been, at least people you see on social media, strangely bearish. I think since Bitcoin started really blowing off, I can't even call it a blow off top at 126K or 125K, wherever it made it up to with the all-time high. It was really kind of just like a gradual. It's kind of just been chugging along. But basically, we've essentially gone sideways. This with some upward and downward volatility, we've basically gone sideways all year. And this is another great reminder. There's a ton of excellent analysis on this particular point. Checkmatey does some really great analysis on this with Check on Chain. Highly recommend checking that out. No pun intended on checking that out. But basically the idea that there's about 6 to 10 days per year, for any given year, where Bitcoin basically makes all of its upside movement, right? And the rest of the year, it basically is just oscillating around the baseline, right? And so if you're not in the market for those days, if you're not invested in the market for those days when Bitcoin does make its moves, you miss out on essentially all of the upside potential, right? But are still exposed to that downside volatility. So again, this goes back to the thing that the best option for most people is just to stay humble, stack sats, try to accumulate more Bitcoin today than you had yesterday. That's generally a pretty darn good rule. But there's been a ton of really bullish narratives underneath the surface of all of this bearish sentiment, which I think is really interesting. Is something I've been talking to you guys about for a couple of months now. As you have all this bearish sentiment kind of in the store of value side of things, in the price, right? And on the NGU side of things, the number go upside. Well, number has been going sideways. So people have been understandably a bit bearish. I think also a huge contributing factor to this was all of the incredible carnage that we saw in the Bitcoin treasury company stock arena, right? And not just for the new entrants to this, but also MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy is down, let's see, like 55% in the last year. It's that's a significant drop. And now it's not as significant as some of these treasury companies who are down like 99%. But it is quite a lot, basically, getting cut in half essentially. At the same time as they're launching all these different products, that Saylor continues stacking. He's also stacking some USD reserves as well now. We can talk about that a little bit later. But amidst all of this carnage in the treasury companies, amidst all of this bearish sentiment in the general, let's say, store of value, narrative around Bitcoin, what I've found really interesting is just the disconnect. And the disconnect is that on the medium of exchange side, we've actually just seen incredible advancements this year. You saw everything from Jack Dorsey's Square launching Bitcoin acceptance for over 4 million merchants, and that number of merchants that are now actively accepting Bitcoin has increased by like many thousands already in the USA, which is just incredible to see. It's on top of that, you've had incredible developments with Lightspark. I just spoke with David Marcus, the CEO of Lightspark. He's former PayPal, former Facebook, led the Libra DM kind of failed stablecoin initiative there. It was shut down by the Treasury Department, Janet Yellen. But now he's building on Bitcoin with Lightspark and their Spark protocol. And they've done incredible advancements this year in terms of medium of exchange adoption, using Bitcoin not just as a medium of exchange, but as a payment rails for medium of exchange. So just really interesting. I think some of the other things that I've more broadly been tracking are just there's been a ton of development on the on Lightning and eCash. There's been a ton of development just more broadly around medium of exchange. And again, this just has not really followed. This has not kept pace with the general sentiment around the price. And I think this is understandable, right? Because we all know that number go up is the best marketing that Bitcoin has. This is the reality, right? Number go up is what makes most people come to Bitcoin. It is why most people end up paying attention to Bitcoin after years, of ignoring it. And so it is the best marketing that Bitcoin has. And so Bitcoin's marketing department lately has, been in terms of the NGU side of things, it's been faltering a little bit, right? People are piling into silver, piling into gold. This is just kind of, a little bit funny to me ultimately. But at the end of the day, it's like nothing has changed with regard to Bitcoin, right? There is nothing that has happened where I would say, oh my gosh, this is some crazy new development that makes me completely rethink my Bitcoin thesis. No, not at all. The fundamentals are still the fundamentals. There are still so many reasons to be bullish, ever more reasons to be bullish. Meanwhile, there's a dislocation between all the underlying fundamentals and what the current price is. When you're sitting at about the same level or a bit lower than you were at the start of the year, yeah, it's understandable why people are feeling bearish. But what I would say is you should be greedy when others are fearful, right? There's a reason these old tropes exist. And it's because while everybody else is complaining about Bitcoin's sideways price action, you should view this as a fact that you've basically gotten to buy Bitcoin at essentially the same price as you did a year ago. Amidst all these different bullish narratives that if you're not paying attention, I could see why you'd be bearish on Bitcoin if all you're looking at is the price. But if you're looking at more than the price, if you're looking at the medium exchange adoption side, if you're looking at the even just institutional adoption side, nation states like El Salvador have been stacking. MicroStrategy continues to just buy an absurd amount of Bitcoin, right? The Russian central bank just said that Bitcoin mining is supporting the ruble. Maybe we'll get into that story a little bit more, but Russia's estimated to control about 16% of the global Bitcoin hash rate. Kingdom of Bhutan has been financing new projects thanks to their Bitcoin mining with their excess hydropower. There's all of these different incredibly bullish themes that have been just right there front and center for anyone who's paying attention. But if all you're paying attention to is the price, you're going to maybe be a little bit bearish. So what I would recommend to people is continue zooming out, continue remembering why you're here in the first place, which is you have an unconfiscatable, uninflatable, completely finite asset that you can transport around the world at the speed of light and very, very cheaply. And no one can ever take this from you. No one can inflate it. It's a beautiful thing. But again, people are funny. Nobody's lining up to buy Bitcoin when the price is $88,000. A lot of people will be lining up to buy Bitcoin when the price is $200,000. Humans are funny. I wish I understood it more. It's just the reality of the situation. So use this dislocation between price and reality as an opportunity. And this is not financial advice. This is, let's say, it's monetary advice, right? This is advice about Bitcoin being the best money. So, yeah, we'll get into a little bit more of that a little bit later. But I do want to get through a couple other news stories here that I've just been tracking and paying attention to. So another one is just around the continuing, let's say, bending of the knee that is being done over at JP Morgan. JP Morgan, you may remember them. They are the ones who just paid a very, very large couple $100 million fine for their ties with Jeffrey Epstein. But we'll leave that aside for now. This is, again, just stating the facts here. But they're currently exploring Bitcoin and crypto trading for institutional clients. So this is, again, the same JP Morgan run by Jamie Dimon that has been vocally anti-Bitcoin. Jamie Dimon, very much so. Perhaps, not so many people on his team are as anti-Bitcoin now because clearly they're trying to open up. They're seeing opportunities to make money off of Bitcoin. So surprise, surprise, when the bankers find that they can somehow make money off of you, then they're happy to come around. But they're essentially considering offering Bitcoin and crypto trading services to their institutional clients. Large banks are deepening their involvement in the general digital asset space. Bitcoin is the part that concerns me there, not so much the rest of the digital assets. But again, the bankers are really the ultimate shitcoiners at the end of the day, right? They're dealing with the greatest shitcoin of all, which is the US dollar. But the firm is assessing what products and services their markets division could offer to expand their footprint in this space. So this could include spot trading, derivatives trading, et cetera. And that's according to Bloomberg Law. Now, this effort is still very much in its early stages, and concrete plans, including any launch timeline, specific products, trading volumes, et cetera, have not been announced. But the discussion is really just kind of harkening back to this rising interest from institutional clients. You know, they're demanding these sorts of services from the big banks. It makes sense that they want this, especially on the Bitcoin side. Everybody wants to find some way to get exposure to the best performing asset in the world. Not this year, but over time, right? And so, you know, obviously these big banks are going to be moving into this space. We've already seen this somewhat. I think JP Morgan is obviously they're the 800-pound gorilla in the room, right? But this would really be a big shift for them and for other large Wall Street banks, because there's, you know, obviously I think the Bitcoin ETF moment was a bit of a turning point in terms of where the Overton window shifted to. Just because when Larry Fink says something is, you know, he gives it his stamp of approval, people pay attention. And so, you know, now they're finally coming around. These big banks are realizing, yes, we can in fact find a way to make money off of this, right? And they're sure as heck going to do it. But Jamie Dimon, again, this is the guy who famously dismissed Bitcoin as being a pet rock and a hyped up fraud. Repeatedly criticized Bitcoin publicly. But then again, you know, over at BlackRock, Larry Fink called Bitcoin an index of money laundering at one point, and now has walked that statement back and said, you know, I just didn't understand it. So if he can come around, I'm sure Jamie Dimon can too. And we'll see. You know, times are changing, stances are shifting, but it's a good opportunity to remind people that, you know, the Wall Street types think that they're going to come in and somehow, you know, change Bitcoin, right? And it's a necessary, or let's say a reasonable fear on behalf of Bitcoiners. But I think it's like the meme, you know, like I'm not trapped in here with you, you're trapped in here with me. Like it's Wall Street will get Bitcoinized, not Bitcoin being Wall Streetized. In my humble opinion, that doesn't mean we should not be vigilant. We should not keep our guard up. But again, the best way that you can make sure that you keep being able to use Bitcoin in the way that is best for you, which is in a self-sovereign way, is to just stack sats and acquire Bitcoin, get large enough UTXOs and send those UTXOs to your cold storage. There's a general shift, I think, too, just globally. There's been a lot of countries that have been openly hostile to Bitcoin and crypto more broadly in the past. For example, Ghana. So Ghana just recently legalized Bitcoin and crypto with a new law. Their parliament passed the Virtual Asset Service Providers Bill. So this formally legalized Bitcoin and crypto trading, and it's used in the Western African nation after years of basically unregulated activity. I mean, heaven forbid, you know, people use something in an unregulated way. The horror, right? But the new law is aiming to bring the rapidly expanding digital asset ecosystem under a clear legal framework, address concerns about fraud, market lack of transparency, and financial stability, all the kind of usual buzzwords that governments throw out there. Now, under the new law, the Bank of Ghana is going to serve as the primary regulator with authority to license and supervise the virtual asset service providers such as exchanges, wallet operators, and other market participants. Now, their goal overall is to just improve market oversight, foster innovation, financial inclusion. Again, the usual buzzwords that you come to expect from governments and large financial institutions. But the Bank of Ghana governor, Johnson Pandalit Aslama, said that the virtual asset trading is now completely illegal and that individuals engaging in these activities will not face arrest, a key shift from previous legal ambiguity surrounding Bitcoin and crypto transactions. I mean, it's just kind of ridiculous that you have to state, like, don't worry, we're not going to arrest you for using an open monetary network. But that's where we're at around the world, apparently. Now, guys, we are going to go to a quick commercial break here. And then when we come back, we've got a bunch of other topics to cover here. Everything from the Epstein files. I want to get into this quantum FUD a little bit. We've got the new battleships for the U.S. On the horizon and kind of talk about what that means in the age of asymmetric warfare shifts and more. We may have some special guests. You'll just have to see. But until then, we're going to go to a very quick commercial break, and then we will be right back. So don't touch that dial. I will see you soon.
So, tell us about your furry friend here. What's his name?
Oh, this? This is Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
He's not just a cat, he's family.
Quite a name, and I must say, looks quite pampered.
Oh, absolutely. Bitcoin deserves nothing but the best. He's my little prince.
But with such a valuable pet, aren't you afraid of losing him?
Losing Bitcoin. No, it never happened before, so it's not something I worry about. Excuse me for a moment. Bitcoin, stay here, right?
Bitcoin, no! Bitcoin, come on, little buddy, Bitcoin, I need you. Don't go.
Security matters. Zappo Bank. The only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
Some call me Chicken Little, others Bubble Boy. I'm a bit changed, but sounds familiar, right? Let me tell you a hard truth. The S&P isn't rising, the dollar's falling. That's the trick. Monopoly money. It's ice melting by the second. Your savings, your salary, your time. Worth less every second. Everyone's using the wrong measuring stick. Switch the denominator. Price the S&P into Bitcoin. Hard, fixed, unprintable. Suddenly your unstoppable index is collapsing. And while you cling to dollars, well, Wall Street already switched. Before, you needed 2 brokers.
Still getting my ninja bonus though, right?
Plenty of spreadsheets. And my quant!
I hate this part.
I was right, and I'll be right again. If I were you, I'd thank me.
You know my name's Dave, right?
Welcome back to RoxomTV, everyone. My name is Walker America. I am here with you for the next couple of hours. We're going to be walking through a lot of Bitcoin-related news, but also some general, let's say, world news, because there's a lot of stuff going on in the world today. One of the big stories that I think everybody has probably been paying attention to, unless you are living under a rock, is the continued shenanigans around the Jeffrey Epstein files. Now, there was recently another batch of Epstein files released. Now, these files were, of course, incredibly heavily redacted, as earlier batches have been. But the Department of Justice released this new batch of Epstein-related documents, and this is under a federal law that requires disclosure. Now, this batch includes several mentions of President Trump, including records of flights on Epstein's jet in the 90s, photographs showing Trump with various, with Epstein and associates. A lot of this stuff is already known, right? Or at least speculated on. Now, the DOJ emphasized that some claims about Trump in the files are unfounded and false, and has defended its process and heavy redactions, and this, amid this controversy over a lot of these files kind of going missing. And again, this is, I think, the reason that people are very understandably kind of just getting pretty sick and tired of this runaround is because since the start of the Trump presidency, there were so many promises. Pam Bondi saying, "I've got these documents, on my desk, we're just ready to show them to everyone." There was the whole thing where the Trump admin brought in all the influencers and gave them the binders, and they all walked out of the Oval Office, with binder in hand, triumphantly showing what? Well, showing really not much of anything. Now, Lawmakers from both parties have criticized this partial and staggered release of the files. And they've basically been accusing the DOJ of failing to comply with the transparency law that was enacted, and they're prompting calls for legal action to basically compel complete disclosures. The DOJ says that they're just balancing the law's requirements with protecting victim identities, and no criminal allegations against Trump have been substantiated through the released documents. Now, to clarify, this isn't just about Trump, right? The left seems to want to make it that way, but this is not just about Trump. There's tons of photos of other high-profile people. For instance, Bill Clinton, Walter Cronkite. There's all sorts of evidence of tons of different people from both sides of the political aisle and everywhere in between engaging with Jeffrey Epstein in various capacities, right? This is let's just say it appears that involvement with Epstein had bipartisan support. Now, this they're saying that just like Trump, there's no direct evidence of illegal activity by any of these individuals who are shown in these files and these records. And these files do include radio messages, flight logs, routine notes from investigators, but no smoking gun apparently has yet surfaced that's linking any major public figure to criminal involvement in Epstein's sex trafficking network based solely on what's been released so far. But again, I think it's pretty obvious to anyone with eyes that there is something very rotten happening here. This is a case where very obviously people at the absolute highest levels of government, powerful businessmen, and everyone in between, very powerful people were clearly involved in this. Were also clearly involved in covering it up for so long. And we're at this point where I think that people on both sides of the political spectrum, like wanting to have transparency around this massive organized sex trafficking and blackmail ring is not it's not a controversial thing for any normal person. Every normal person says, yeah, please, can we get some, figure out which of our politicians are compromised by foreign intelligence? Because it's very obvious that Jeffrey Epstein was an agent of both foreign intelligence and also domestic intelligence. He was very clearly, this is, again, not really up for debate. Everybody kind of knows this. And everybody knows that all of these high profile people were involved in this. This is, again, not really up for debate. This is very clear. Now, the question of what specific, wrongdoing happened for each person, is there something that somebody can be charged with specifically? I'm sure that exists in these documents that we're not probably ever going to see, right? Because that's the thing. There is clearly damning evidence that exists. And such evidence, if it ever is brought to light, would completely destabilize the global political order. And this is really the true reason why this stuff, in my opinion, most of the most damning stuff that we know definitely exists, is not going to see the light of day. We know that there is ungodly amounts of video footage and all these different things. We know that Epstein had his island basically completely wiretapped and totally surveilled, and that probably absolutely horrific things were captured there. Undoubtedly heinous criminal acts by some of the most powerful people in the world. But that's the thing. The most powerful people in the world are still the most powerful people in the world. And the very people who should be being held to account probably never will, because again, they're the most powerful people in the world. We got to be careful what I say here, but there's also if it seems very difficult to pin anything on the Clintons, not saying they ever did anything bad, but boy, there's a lot of mysterious stuff that seems to happen around the Clintons, isn't there? It's just, I'm sure it's all just coincidences. All the people who end up getting unalived because of their proximity to the Clintons. I'm sure it is just a coincidence. Just like everybody, all these powerful people who have been shown to be friends with Jeffrey Epstein, or travel with Jeffrey Epstein in his private plane, or spend time with Jeffrey Epstein, or live next to Jeffrey Epstein. I'm sure all of those people had absolutely no idea what he was doing. no idea at all. Just like all of the people that were, around Harvey Weinstein had absolutely no idea what he was doing, right? I'm sure it's all just a complete misunderstanding, and maybe there were just a couple of bad apples. And this isn't at all tied to a larger international blackmail operation to be able to keep American politicians and businessmen basically at the beck and call of foreign or domestic intelligence services. I'm sure that is not the case. That would just be a crazy conspiracy theory, right? And as we know, the conspiracy theories, they're just put forward by a bunch of kooks, right? Can you think of even one conspiracy theory that's been proven to be true just a short while after? I mean, it's not like they had any idea that the jabs were potentially causing heart failure, right? They had no idea that. Oh, well, actually, bad example. I guess they did, and they actually had documented evidence of it. So maybe some conspiracy theories do come true, but not this one. This one, in the case of Jeffrey Epstein and all of his involvement with all of these powerful people, it's just a coincidence, and clearly there's no evidence of wrongdoing yet in any of the files that have been released. So I'm sure that this is all just one big misunderstanding, and that Jeffrey Epstein definitely did kill himself, and there wasn't any other plot there. And and let's just please move on, guys. And didn't you see that Trump just moved weed to be a Schedule 3 drug, so it's no longer a Schedule 1? So didn't you see that, guys? Pay attention to the weed decriminalization instead of all of these just spurious connections between Epstein and very, very powerful and influential people that basically run the world. I'm sure it is just a coincidence. Nothing to see here. Please move on. So, in the interest of moving on, and maybe we'll look back on that one in a little bit, but in other very exciting non-Epstein related news, because again, there's nothing even to pay attention to with the Epstein thing. President Trump announced a new U.S. battleship fleet. He unveiled an ambitious plan to build a new class of U.S. Navy battleships dubbed the Trump class, of course. I believe they will also have gold trim around them. He seems to be a big fan of gold there as far as decorations go. This is part of a broader Golden Fleet initiative intended to modernize and expand American naval power. Speaking at Mar-a-Lago, Trump described the ships as larger, faster, and, quote, 100 times more powerful than any previous U.S. battleships, and said that construction would begin with 2 vessels and plans to eventually build 20 to 25 ships. Now, these warships are envisioned to feature more advanced technologies such as hypersonic and nuclear-armed cruise missiles, railguns, high-powered lasers, substantial AI elements, and basically will be constructed domestically in an effort to revitalize U.S. shipbuilding. Now, senior defense officials have framed this initiative as a response to global maritime threats and a revival of American sea power. Critics, on the other hand, are arguing that basically these large battleships are militarily obsolete against modern missile threats, and that funds might be better spent on stealthier or distributed platforms like submarines or smaller combatants. And some also questioned, whether naming them after a sitting political figure is, basically kind of a funny thing to do. But hey, what are you going to do here? But maybe just a note on this is that it is very interesting to be spending potentially so much money, because this will cost an ungodly amount of money, on, let's say, more conventional means of defense and attack, right? Classic battleships. Now, granted, these are, I'm sure, going to be very upgraded and very top of the line. But as we've seen, this is an age of asymmetric warfare, where you have the ability to send out a pretty cheap fleet of small drones with explosive payloads attached that can incapacitate multi-billion-dollar ships, right? And you can do it so the cost of attack is substantially decreased, and the cost of trying to defend against these things when you have such a large vessel and a very expensive vessel like that cost of defense is still very, very large there, right? And so you've got this new model for kinetic warfare, I think, and it's combined with this new era of cyber warfare, whether that be kind of conventional hacking and trying to breach key infrastructure and systems. Like we know that every government intelligence agency in the world basically tries to backdoor their way into every other government's key infrastructure, into their power and water infrastructure. That's some of the governments, that's their bread and butter, right? Is trying to make sure that they have basically digital sleeper cells, so to speak, integrated into key infrastructure in even our allies' systems, right? And I think that the other battlefront where we really start to see more and more relevance is on sort of the information warfare side of things, because especially in the age of AI, you now have the ability to generate generative propaganda slop, basically, and the ability to create very, very convincing propaganda that makes it seem as though real people actually did X, Y, and Z. And especially on boomers just have no defenses against AI slop. Their defenses are zero, essentially. You could see, you have a boomer that's basically sees a picture of Jesus riding a unicorn in downtown Manhattan, and they're like, when was this taken? When was this photograph taken of Jesus riding a unicorn in Manhattan? I can't believe I didn't see this in the news. But in an era where you have such a completely reimagined idea of what does information warfare look like, and how easy is it to generate that sort of high quality propaganda that totalitarians from prior eras could only have dreamed of. Propagandists from prior eras could only have dreamed of having this ability to create these incredibly sophisticated sort of informational attacks. It really comes down to yes, you have kinetic war, yes, you have cyber war, but you also have information war. And you have different governments that are trying to control the narrative. They're trying to make sure that they can suppress dissent in their own country, and then also perhaps stoke dissent in other countries, right? And you've seen the attempts of governments to really try and restrict the speech of their citizens, to try and restrict what information can be shared on social media platforms. You saw recently with the European Union levying a large, $140 million fine against Elon Musk. You see that governments are trying to crack down on what is allowed to be shown to their citizens. And ultimately, this is, all of the restrictions of speech that you see in places like the UK and the EU and many other countries as well. But these are just the supposedly liberal democracies, which are implementing totalitarian speech laws and surveillance laws. What the ultimate goal of that is control, right? It's the idea is to be able to control the narrative. You start by not allowing hate speech, because you can't possibly offend somebody or say mean words to somebody. That should be a jailable offense. And then if you start being able to control hate speech, well, then misinformation and disinformation become very, very easy to outlaw as well. We can't have people spreading false things. And of course, who decides what's misinformation and disinformation? Well, the government does, just like they did during COVID. Just like they do any time that there's a crisis. The government is the one who gets to decide what is truth and what is lies. And if you are caught spouting lies publicly, that could be very dangerous and destabilizing to democracy. So of course, we'll have to make that illegal. We'll have to throw you in jail for doing so. Okay. But where this eventually leads is making sure that you are not, that your citizens are not able to freely express themselves, and that foreign actors are similarly not able to try and propagandize your citizens, right? It's a twofold approach there. The problem being that information wants to be free, and information will be free. And whether you're using, if you're using centralized social media platforms, yes, it's a bit easier to control, but there are many open protocols now for censorship-resistant communication. For example, Nostr, notes and other stuff transmitted by relays. These would-be totalitarian governments aren't going to be able to shut down all of the apps that are built on Nostr, or even Blue Sky if you want the very woke leftist flavor of an open protocol for communication. A bit of an echo chamber for commies over there, but that's a different story. But this all kind of dovetails into, I recently had a conversation with with Preston Byrne. He's a lawyer who's currently serving as legal counsel for 4chan and a number of other U.S. based firms. And the reason he's needing to defend them is because Ofcom, the UK regulator that's basically in charge of online communications, is trying to sue 4chan and a number of other companies for basically breaching the UK's Online Safety Act. Even though that's a US company, they've got their servers in the US, they've got no offices or business dealings whatsoever in the UK. The UK is trying to reach across the ocean and give, apparently they don't realize that we fought a war to not be underneath their thumb. But I guess we got to remind them that they, in fact, they may not have free speech over in the UK, but we do have free speech in the United States of America. And I want to maybe just share, I'll just share quickly this recent post from Preston Byrne, because I think it's really interesting and folks should be absolutely paying attention to this. Okay, so let me go ahead and share this here. So again, this is Preston Byrne here. As counsel to the first 4 U.S. enforcement targets of the UK Online Safety Act, I extend my thanks to Congressman JVD. This is Congressman Jeff Van Drew, for filing the resolution in the House of Representatives yesterday, expressing disapproval of UK Ofcom's attempts at extraterritorially censoring U.S. clients. So this is really great. This is on the back of, again, the congressman filing in the House and the Senate a resolution towards disapproving and opposing the Ofcom's demands to differentiate 4chan's user base and implement age walling for Britons and everyone. So this is great to see. And as Preston goes on to say, my clients are simply test cases. The UK's objective is to take all American civil rights away online. I'm heartened by the swiftness of America's response and very hopeful that Congress will respond in a more forceful way to foreign censors in the new year. And he's got a great article here. I highly recommend everybody follow Preston Byrne and stay up to date on this stuff. I think it's very, very important. And it's great to see that that lawmakers in the U.S. are taking note of these cases, because ultimately these are, again, this is attempting to fight an information war here. And what they're essentially doing, what they're doing in the UK is to try and say our ridiculous speech laws, well, they apply to you as American companies. Our totalitarian, Orwellian, whatever you'd like to call them, speech laws, we're going to apply that to you, Americans, and just completely disregard the fact that you are not citizens of the UK. You're not a company operating in the UK. The key point here is that the United Kingdom could, of course, just block these websites at the ISP level. Right? They could block access to 4chan. They as the government, they could very easily go in and say to the internet service providers, we need you to completely block access to 4chan. We're going to create our own little walled garden of the internet, and we don't want anybody to have access to 4chan. They could do this right now. Okay, why don't they do that? If their goal is they don't want to have this kind of hateful comments and rhetoric that is sometimes seen on 4chan, poisoning the minds of their pristine United Kingdom citizens. Well, of course, they don't want to do that, because then they're the bad guy. Then their citizens look at them and say, why are you restricting my ability to visit this website? Like, I want to visit this website. Why are you not allowing me to do that, government? And then people start getting really mad. So instead, what they try to do is they try to control via enforcement. But the problem is that they're not trying to control a UK company. They're trying to control a US company. They're trying to infringe on a company's rights that has no business whatsoever in the UK. This is the internet, the open internet. 4chan has no business base of operations in the UK. They don't do anything in the UK, no service in the UK, no nothing. So because the internet is open, and mostly open, I mean, not if you're in North Korea or China, but it's mostly open. But the UK government does not want it to be that way. They want to restrict access. They want 4chan to implement all of these controls that are in line with their UK Online Safety Acts. 4chan's refusing to do that. This is great, and thanks to the work of Preston Byrne, there's he's been pushing as well for legislation in Congress to this effect. I mentioned the resolution put forward by the congressman earlier, but there's also the Granite Act, and we can get into that because I think the Granite Act is extremely important for people to understand and what that means. But really, to tie this all back to kind of the kinetic versus cyber versus information warfare, this is all about control ultimately. And right now we're in somewhat of uncharted territories because there wasn't before the internet, there wasn't an internet, right? It sounds like an obvious statement, but the point being, governments are still trying to figure out how to deal with this thing. They're trying to figure out how can they possibly maintain their control over their populace, maintain control over information, maintain control of what their people can say and hear and do and see. How can they do that if the internet is open? If anybody from any country can say, I think the UK regulators are a bunch of tosspots. I think that's a British insult. I'm not entirely sure. I think I heard it in a movie once. But moral of the story: in order to have total control, in order to the what is necessary for any sort of totalitarianism to exist, is total control of speech, a complete obliteration of privacy. And that is what you see happening. All of these different, whether it's the Online Safety Act in the UK or the EU flavor of the same thing, or the Australian flavor of the same thing, which was also just passed, all of these things have the same goal. Now, their stated goal is to protect children, right? This is always, how would you like this wrapped? Counterterrorism or protect the children? This is always the government's, the government's kind of fake bargain here. But they say that this is to protect the children. We need to have age verification for all of these websites, right? That's what we need. And that will keep the children safe from seeing or hearing awful things online that they shouldn't be exposed to. And okay, we all agree. As a parent myself, it's like I have a very young son. Yeah, I don't want to have my kid exposed to awful things on the internet, and that's my job as a parent, to try and protect them from that and to make sure that they're not getting access to these things, right? But the government thinks that it's their job in the UK and in the EU and in Australia. And so what they're doing is requiring age verification. And of course, the companies that provide these age verification services, well, they make a bunch of money from all of these government contracts as well. I'm sure there's no backroom deals happening there. I'm sure it's all totally above board. And I'm sure, just like they say, that they delete your information as soon as they've used it, right? And so that's not at all creating a huge informational honeypot for hackers to try and get into it. No, sir. Point here is, it starts out with, well, we need to protect the children, right? So we need to ID everyone, because then if we ID everyone, then we can figure out who's a child, and the child won't be allowed because apparently, and this is just the idiocy of all of this. It's like, you'll only be able to gain access to these things if you show that you're above a certain age by showing your ID. Well, if a person's not above that age, they're not going to show an ID because they don't have an ID to show. So what you're really doing is you're IDing and tying IDs to online social profiles of just normal law-abiding adults. And that's the key point here, is that this is the foot in the door to tie the physical real-world identity and location. If it's you're sharing your ID, depending on what kind of ID it is, it has a lot of other information on there about you as well. It's tying that to your online personas. It's tying that to what sites you visit. So then they're able to get a complete map of, here's what this, here's where this person posts from, here's where this person goes and reads. All of this stuff being tied to you. And well, you may say, well, come on, this is just, again, we're trying to protect the kids, right? But let's take this to the next natural step. Where does it go from there? Well, after that, you've ID'd everyone, well, then you start to realize, well, hold on a second. People can use VPNs, and they can just use a US VPN. And, for all we know, it seems like they're in the US, and then they get around needing to have these ID requirements. Well, I guess we're going to have to implement ID verification for VPNs as well, so that we know, if you have to be a certain age to use a VPN too. And then, but boy, there's all sorts of ways. You know what? It'd just be easier if we just got rid of VPNs. Like, that just seems, why do you need a VPN unless you're a criminal? Why do you need privacy unless you have nothing to hide, right? Wink, wink. And then where does all that lead? Well, that necessarily eventually just leads to, okay, We've tied your real world identity to all of your online activity. We've prevented you from being able to use the internet anonymously. We've cut off certain parts of the internet from you that we view as just too distasteful. We can't possibly be exposed to that hate. We've criminalized the ability to speak freely and to potentially say something that might offend somebody online or in person. And all of that just is ultimately going to get tied back to your access to the financial system, because that's the ultimate lever of power that they have, is access to the financial system, the ability to freeze your money, to debank you. That is the ultimate lever of power that a nation state wields against you, because without the freedom to transact, all of your other freedoms are much, much, much more difficult to exercise, right? So that is all going to see, and you already see in Europe, Christine Lagarde is very pro digital euro, right? CBDC, extremely pro CBDC. All of this, where I see this going, is all of this ends up getting tied back. Digital, your online identity is tied to your real world identity. Then you may as well just have a digital ID there while you're at it. All of that is tied to all of your that online activity. That is tied to being able to very quickly determine, hey, exactly who was that anonymous person who said this hurtful thing about who called Keir Starmer a little piggy man or something. Like, what we're going to do, thankfully now we have a central bank digital currency. We can just go ahead and find them directly right from their central bank digital currency wallet. We'll just extract the money right from it. Maybe they said something so offensive that we're just going to freeze access to their financial system completely from them. And so this stuff is such a slippery slope, people, because it starts with protecting the children, and where it ends up is totalitarianism. And that may sound a little bit hyperbolic, but it's the truth. They will use protecting the children as their excuse to implement truly Orwellian and totalitarian initiatives that ultimately lead to them being able to surveil everything you do, them being able to fine you anytime that you step out of line and say something offensive, them being able to cut you off from access to the financial system at the drop of a hat, cut you off first and ask questions later. And all of that comes back to total control. Now, of course, what they don't realize is that, again, information wants to be free. And on the free and open internet, the countries are only hurting themselves and their own citizens by restricting internet access for their people, right? And when you try to come after American companies who are operating in a totally legal way in a country where we actually have a constitution and have free speech enshrined in said constitution, and also the right to keep and bear arms, which they also don't have in the UK in any meaningful way. Well, you're gonna find out very quickly that things don't fly like that in America. So this is all to say, we're entering a very interesting new era where the nature of warfare is changing. It is kinetic, it is cyber, but it is also informational. And countries are ultimately, it seems, trying to right now fight an information war with their own citizens. They're trying to restrict speech. They're trying to restrict access. And that just will not end well for the would-be totalitarians in charge. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We've got some more updates to share with you guys. I do want to talk about Bitcoin's quantum, the quantum FUD, or maybe it's not FUD. Maybe it's super legit. I'm not sure. We'll see in a second. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some other news that's happening in the great wide world out there outside of Bitcoin. But first, we're going to run to a quick commercial break. So don't touch that dial. We will be right back.
So, tell us about your furry friend here. What's his name?
Oh, this? This is Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
It's not just a cat, he's family.
Quite a name, and I must say, looks quite pampered.
Oh, absolutely. Bitcoin deserves nothing but the best. He's my little prince.
But with such a valuable pet, aren't you afraid of losing him?
Losing Bitcoin? No, it never happened before, so it's not something I worry about. Excuse me for a moment. Bitcoin, stay here, right?
Bitcoin, no! Bitcoin, come on, little buddy, Bitcoin, I need you. Don't go.
Security matters. Zappo Bank. The only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
Some call me Chicken Little, others Bubble Boy. I'm a bit changed, but sounds familiar, right? Let me tell you a hard truth. The S&P isn't rising, the dollar's falling. That's the trick. Monopoly money. It's ice melting by the second. Your savings, your salary, your time. Worth less every second. Everyone's using the wrong measuring stick. Switch the denominator. Price the S&P into Bitcoin. Hard, fixed, unprintable. Suddenly your unstoppable index, it's collapsing. And while you cling to dollars, well, Wall Street already switched. Before, you needed 2 brokers.
Still getting my ninja bonus though, right?
Plenty of spreadsheets. And my quant!
I hate this part.
I was right, and I'll be right again. If I were you, I'd thank me.
You know my name's Dave, right?
Welcome back to RoxomTV. My name is Walker America, and I'm your host here every Tuesday from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are back, and one of the things I want to talk about with you guys next is a story that's been, I think, really top of mind for a lot of Bitcoiners, but it's something that I hope makes it outside into the let's say the outside of the Bitcoin echo chamber and into the larger public awareness, because I think it's a really important story just for for the precedents that it sets and what it means for America going forward here. So this is about the story of the Samurai Wallet developers, and we just saw as of just December 19th, Keone Rodriguez just had to report to federal prison, and there I'll maybe just read a post from Keone's wife, which is just it's really heartbreaking. So just returned home after dropping off my husband, Keone, off at the FPC Morgantown to begin serving a 5-year prison term for a crime he is innocent of. My first instinct was to reach for my phone to let him know I arrived safely. This is a habit I need to learn to break. I'm uncertain when I will be able to next speak with my husband, as it can take several days for inmates to gain access to the phone system. For now, I'll simply have to wait. And she goes on to say, I know the situation is real, but a part of me still struggles to accept that it has come to this. Since the raid on our home on April 24th, I have often thought that this surely must have been the moment when they realized their mistake and this nightmare would come to an end. And as just a note, I spoke with Keone before he had to report to prison. And this raid that Keone's wife, Lauren, is speaking of here, it was 50 FBI agents in a dawn raid breaking down their door and dragging Keone out. Just ridiculous. I mean, talk about just, first of all, an absurd waste of taxpayer money to send 50 armed agents, an armored car, drone surveillance to pick up a single guy who they were trying to indict, again, for a non-violent crime, a crime which he didn't actually even commit. We can get into that, though. But, this, I really recommend that people do check it out and look into this story more. There's been a lot of people posting about it. You can see now that the on change.org, the Stand Up for Freedom, Pardon the Innocent Coders Jailed for Building Privacy Tools, it's up to almost 12,000 signatures now, which is fantastic. But there is still a lot of room for more signatures there. I would encourage everybody, you can go to billandkeone.org for a very easy way to get that link to the change.org petition. I would encourage people to go sign that, and also to continue making noise on social media about this case, because this is a case where I believe both of the men in question, Keone and Bill, the creators of Samurai Wallet, deserve a pardon from President Trump. Ultimately, I mean, this entire case is just kind of insane. Maybe I'll give just a little bit of background on it, but essentially they were sentenced in November 2025 Rodriguez to 5 years, going into 5 years, and William Bill Hill to 4 years, each with a $250,000 fine, and then additional millions of dollars in fines after they are released. After they're charged with basically a connection with their software that they built at Samurai Wallet, that apparently a tiny fraction of users may have misused for illicit transactions. Heaven forbid. Again, the important thing here is that for anyone that's not familiar with the case, I'll give a brief rundown, but the important thing here about the Samurai case is that Bill and Keone, the Samurai Wallet founders, they never took custody of user funds at any time. So you contrast that with what happened with JP Morgan Chase, who again recently settled with the Department of Justice for a couple $100 million fine for their connections with laundering money for Jeffrey Epstein, where they did actually have control of that money. Now, JP Morgan Chase is a licensed money transmitter. So, if you're a licensed money transmitter, apparently that means you can launder money for sex traffickers and you just get away with paying a fine as a cost of doing business and nobody ever goes to jail. But if you're an open source software developer, you're not so lucky. You don't get to just pay a fine as a cost of doing business. No. Instead, what you have to do is go to jail for 5 years. And now what they were initially, the Department of Justice tried to slap them with, and the prosecutors at the Southern District of New York, they tried to slap them with 25 years and a couple $100 million in fines that they would need to pay. Basically, the reason it was a couple $100 million was it was all of the, I think it was maybe close to $500 million. It was all of the money the value that had ever been sent through their platform, right? So they were basically saying all of this it was illicit because you guys were operating as an unlicensed money transmitter. Now, here's the thing about this money transmitter part. It was discovered that the prosecutors of the Southern District of New York, they went to FinCEN a year before, 6 months before the case started, 6 months before the indictment was brought against Bill and Keone. The prosecutors went to FinCEN. FinCEN is the regulator in charge of determining who is a money transmitter and who needs a money transmitter license in order to operate their business. They went to FinCEN and they said, are these guys money transmitters? Are they operating as money transmitters and therefore are they unlicensed money transmitters, which would be a crime? FinCEN said, no, they're not money transmitters. Why? Because according to our very clear guidelines that we have at FinCEN, you need to actually take possession of user funds in order to be a money transmitter. If you have a non-custodial, you never put your hands on any user funds, you're never custodying funds for users, which the Samurai Wallet developers were not. They never had custody of user funds at any time. So FinCEN correctly said, based on their own rules that they had, their frameworks that they had in place, no, prosecutors, they are not unlicensed money transmitters because they don't need a money transmitter license. They're not transmitting money in the way that we have legally defined this to be. So nope, we don't need that. Okay. Prosecutors, this was 6 months before the indictment. They brought the indictment anyway, 6 months later, trying to charge Bill and Keone with the exact thing that FinCEN said they were not guilty of. FinCEN said these guys are not money transmitters, so we don't care what they're doing. They're not money transmitters. We're not regulating these guys because there's nothing to regulate. They don't take custody of user funds. The prosecutors still brought that charge of unlicensed money transmission, even though the regulator who determines who's a money transmitter said they weren't a money transmitter. Now, if you're saying, Walker, this doesn't make any sense at all, that sounds ridiculous. Well, I agree. It is ridiculous. Okay. Fast forward 6 months into the case. So it's now been a year since FinCEN initially went forward since the prosecutors initially went to FinCEN. Okay. 6 months after they did that, they indicted Bill and Keone with that Dawn raid, sending just a great use of our taxpayer money, sending 50 agents to kick in a guy's door as he sleeps. Awesome. 6 months after that indictment, it was finally revealed that the prosecutors had gone to FinCEN and that FinCEN's guidance was, no, there's no case here. They're not money transmitters. Now, this evidence should have been revealed immediately. And this evidence is clearly grounds for dismissal. The entire premise of the case that the Southern District of New York prosecutors brought against Samurai Wallet developers is that they were operating an unlicensed money transmitter business, but they weren't because they never had custody of user funds. And the people who say who it does and who does not have an unlicensed money transmitter business, FinCEN, said they don't have one. So this is insane. This is what's known as exculpatory evidence. And this is actually what the prosecutors did was a Brady Act violation. And the Brady Act basically says that when government prosecutors are bringing a case against you, they're required to disclose any and all information that may be what they call exculpatory evidence that may result in a dismissal of the case. They're required to disclose any information that they come across, even if that information is detrimental to the case of the prosecutors and beneficial to the defendants, which is good, right? That makes sense. If the government who is trying to prosecute you finds something that says, oh, actually, maybe we shouldn't be prosecuting these guys, they should have to tell you because we're a nation of laws, right? This is a nation of law and order. You should need to disclose when you find evidence that perhaps proves that the people you're trying to charge and send to prison and rip away from their families and fine into oblivion, if you find evidence that shows that maybe you don't actually have a case, you have to reveal that. Well, they didn't. Again, 6 months after they found out they didn't have a case, they indicted them and brought a case anyway. And then 6 months after that, a full year after they went to FinCEN, only then was it disclosed to Bill and Keone that, oh, actually, yeah, we talked to FinCEN a year ago. And they said, you guys aren't unlicensed money transmitters, but you know what? We're coming after you anyway. So this whole case is patently absurd. And again, this case was initially brought under the Biden Department of Justice. We know that the Biden DOJ was significantly more, let's say, aggressive towards and antagonistic towards the Bitcoin and larger crypto industry. But this is still continuing right now, right? These guys were sentenced just in November. As I mentioned, Keone Rodriguez has already had to report to federal prison. William Bill, he's going to be reporting very soon. And in my mind, this is just a gross miscarriage of justice. This is not how, if President Trump truly means that he wants to make America the Bitcoin and crypto capital of the world, you can't possibly do that when you're throwing open source developers who didn't actually break the law into prison. There's all sorts of other really weird stuff that happened with this case too. For example, the judge that they were supposed to have, and that they did have for the first part of this case, was just randomly removed from the case, and a new judge was put in, a new judge who would not even hear any of their objections, any of their petitions for dismissal of the case. This is a very non-standard practice. And I think what's most shocking about all of this is that it really it illustrates the fact, and this is something Keone said to me, because I was understandably shocked as I was speaking with him. And as I'd read about the details of the case, but hearing it from him and hearing more details was truly eye-opening. And he said, the reason that you're shocked right now is because you think that this justice system is like, the purpose is actually justice, and it's not. The purpose is just to get the people to show that whoever they're going after is guilty. It's not actually to find justice. And I really would I would call people again, if you go to Bill and Keone, that's Keonne, that's how you spell it, Keone.org, billandkeone.org. You can sign that petition. I really would recommend it. I mean, costs you absolutely nothing to sign a petition. It takes just a moment. It costs you nothing to share it on social media as well. It costs you nothing to post about it and continue making noise about it, and let these guys know, even though Keone is now in prison, let him know he's not forgotten, and let the people that are purportedly in charge of this country know that this is unacceptable and that these men deserve a pardon. Because again, the whole central theme to this is custodial versus non-custodial software, right? And again, I just really want to drill this home, that Bill and Keone never had custody of user funds at any time. They never had custody of it. They weren't, when people think of Bitcoin and crypto mixers, they tend to think of some of the older implementations of these where you would basically send your Bitcoin or crypto to a custodian, and then kind of mixes it all together, right? Mixes it all up and then sends it back out, and they they are actually taking custody of it at some point, right? Now, you can debate, like, I'm not here to debate whether or not these money transmitter laws even make sense in the first place, which I don't think a lot of them do. It's a different story. Let's talk about Bill and Keone specifically. In their case, they never did that. They never had custody. They just wrote open source, completely open source software. There's actually somebody else has already spun up an implementation of it, from what Keone said. Already spun up another implementation from their open source code, which is amazing. Again, information wants to be free. But they never had custody of user funds at any time. The regulator in charge of saying who's a money transmitter said they're not a money transmitter. And the prosecution moved forward anyway. And now there's one man sitting in federal prison, another who's soon to report to federal prison. They were taken away from their families for writing open source code. And I've seen a lot of people that have come out and said things like, well, they weren't indicted because they wrote open source code. They're indicted because they broke the law. And it's, but they didn't break the law. And then people have said, well, they were inviting criminals and whatnot to use it. And it's like, no, but they weren't. And that's not what they were charged with. You know what I mean? So this is like, you can say that you didn't like their tactics on social media and things like that, but ultimately it's not what they were charged with, right? And then I saw some other people, which is truly just an incredibly smooth brain take, say, well, they pled guilty, so they must be guilty. And you have to be a special kind of moron to believe that. It's like, if you think that everybody who pleads guilty is guilty, you've got another thing coming. The reality is that they were threatened with 25 years and hundreds of millions of dollars in fines, which means that even after you make it out, and Bill's a little bit on the older side. He would have been in his late 80s, I think, or early 90s by the time he got out of prison. Keone would have been in his early 60s. By the time they got out of prison, already having lost a quarter of a century behind bars, they would have been slapped with hundreds of millions of dollars of fines, which means you can't leave the country, you can't travel, you can't do anything. It's essentially a life sentence. That's how Keone described it. Because of course you're never going to pay that back. You're never going to pay hundreds of millions of dollars back. You're not like JP Morgan, where you have a giant, fund that's specifically just for paying off your when they catch you laundering money for criminals. You just pay that off as a cost of doing business. These guys didn't have that, right? Because they're just open source software developers who wrote privacy protecting software that, again, was a net benefit to law-abiding people who simply did not want to have all of their activity tracked. And again, I really encourage people to look more into this case. You can check out, if you go on my profile at Walker America, you can find my interview with Keone as well. And a lot of other people have interviewed him. To feel free to check out any of those interviews. Just educate yourself more on this case. I promise that the more you learn about this case, the angrier you are going to get. And really this comes down to what kind of precedence this sets. And if it can be that, if the precedence is set that when you write open source code, even if you don't qualify as a money transmitter, because the people who are in charge of regulating that said you're not. Again, this isn't like Bill and Keone's lawyers saying they're not money transmitters. I mean, they did say that, but FinCEN said that. Bill and Keone's lawyers, they've been operating this business for 10 years, almost a decade. They've been operating this business, and they were never charged or approached or had anything happen to them before like this. Never any indication. Their lawyers said, yep, no, you guys, since you don't take custody of user funds, this completely falls in line with everything. This is totally legal. So they weren't operating some secretive business. They weren't hiding in the shadows doing this. No, they were operating a privacy focused service, and one that people really liked. And then they, absolutely just got railroaded by a justice system with very, I would say, unjust tactics. And I don't want to, can't say as to the particular motivation of these people, but it seems like very much a case that you've seen. Let me put it this way. If you zoom out and you look at a lot of similar cases like this, so let's just say generally about people writing software or building internet websites. You look at Ross Ulbricht, who was pardoned by Donald Trump, he had the book thrown at him. There was no victims named at his trial. There again, no victims, right? Were named at Ross Ulbricht's trial, and he was given 2 life sentences plus 40 years without the chance of parole for operating an open internet marketplace, right? I mean, that's ridiculous. We give murderers less time behind bars. We give this is just insane. You've got people roaming around in the streets that have been arrested 70, 100 times, going out and committing more crimes, and in some cases, killing people. But they've been arrested, dozens and dozens of times, but the justice system let them out because apparently that's justice. But when you write open source software, you get the book thrown at you. You get absolutely obliterated by the justice system. You look at even the case of Aaron Swartz. And there's a great documentary about this. The Internet's Own Boy. It's a really heartbreaking story because Aaron ended up taking his life after he was charged with a massive amount of fines and jail time and everything else because he basically pirated essentially a bunch of medical and research papers that were basically paywalled off in JSTOR and made them available to everybody on the internet. And it's just again, these stories are horrible, and you notice this trend of anytime there's anything involved with the internet, anytime involved with anything with open source software, or with somebody daring to be a brilliant developer, coder, hacker, whatever it is, who does something in a novel way, the justice system attacks them with everything they have. They attempt to essentially throw the book at them and deter anyone else from daring to step outside of their lane ever again, because they that if you do, they will try to punish you for life. They will ruin your life. They will destroy any chance that you have of living a normal life. And in the case of Aaron Swartz, he ended up taking his own life. And so this is horrific. I really hope that Bill and Keone, they stay strong here. We need to let them know that we have not forgotten about them. We need to keep making noise about this. We need to, if you have any connections to the Trump administration, if you have any connections to anybody even remotely close to them, I would really encourage you to make as much noise as you possibly can. And if you can, you can donate as well. Unfortunately, at this time, you can only donate in fiat because as a condition of their sentencing, they weren't allowed to receive Bitcoin or crypto or use it in any way, and which is again just kind of ridiculous. So the primary way that people would have been able to donate to support them was not allowed, or they would have faced even more jail time. And this whole saga is really is horrible. I would encourage people to still stay on top of it and to follow this very closely and to make your voice heard, because this is not something that we should just let slide. If you are setting the precedent that law-abiding Americans whose only crime is writing open source software, and unfortunately, it turns out that people who are bad people can use software. They can, just like criminals can use the internet, just like criminals can use cars, just like criminals can use guns, just like criminals can use everything that non-criminals, that law-abiding citizens can use. Just because a criminal uses something that you made doesn't mean that you are a criminal for creating that thing. This isn't complex. This shouldn't even need to be said. But apparently it does, because apparently we're at a point where they're really, again, I think we're at an inflection point where there's so much effort being put out by governments around the world and in the US to try and exert control over their citizenry. because governments can see that they're losing their grip, right? The way we're able to communicate and broadcast now, the fact that I can broadcast to all of you live around the world, that I don't need to have a massive, news desk, and I don't need to be on CNN to get my message out there, or Fox. We can be right here on RoxomTV. I can broadcast by myself. We can speak freely to each other online. We can engage in commerce online. We can transact online without middlemen, thanks to Bitcoin. I think this scares the hell out of people in power. And I do hope that the Trump administration does the right thing and rights the wrong that the Biden administration started by prosecuting Bill and Keone, the Samurai Wall developers. I hope that Trump sees, as somebody who has also been a victim of lawfare from the Southern District of New York. There's a very interesting rabbit hole there for anybody who wants to go down all the interesting connections the Southern District of New York has to very fascinating cases. I would recommend you do that. Of course, this is all just speculation. Just these things just happen to be connected, but maybe take a look down there and see what you can find on that rabbit hole. Point being here, this would be doing the right thing to pardon these guys. There's been a lot of pardons handed out for people who deserve them far less than Bill and Keone do. And so keep making noise about this. This is, I think, the most important story in Bitcoin and in open source tech right now from a let's say a legal standpoint. People really need to be paying attention to this. You need to continue making noise. And you need to make sure that this doesn't just get normalized because it's not a very far jump from, hey, you're Bill and Keone were operating an unlicensed money transmitter business. And now you, by relaying transactions on your node, verifying transactions on your node, maybe you're running an unlicensed money transmitter business too. These aren't far leaps to make. And so I would encourage people to pay attention. Again, go to billandkeone.org to sign that petition, share it out, continue making noise about this. We should do everything we can to try and get these guys back with their families. Making noise does make a difference. Ross got that pardon thanks to a lot of tireless work, a lot of advocacy by his mom, by his family, also by folks like Angela McArdle from the Libertarian Party, and a lot of people in the Bitcoin space as well, and the libertarian movement more broadly, making noise about this and saying, this is promises made, promises kept. Let's see you keep your word, Trump and President Trump. If you really want America to be the Bitcoin and crypto capital of the world, it needs to be a place where open source developers can write perfectly legal software without the fear of getting thrown in prison and having their doors kicked in at 3 a.m. by 50 FBI agents. So I really hope that that President Trump does the right thing. And on the other side of things, it'd be a great distraction from all the Epstein stuff, right? So, hey, maybe two birds with one stone here. You can do the right thing and, help distract from all of these heavy redactions that are happening in the Epstein files. Okay, guys, we're going to take another quick break. And when we come back, we are going to talk a little bit more about the Bitcoin and quantum FUD specifically. We're also going to talk about some other general world news stories. So stay tuned here. We're going to be right back in just a moment. Don't touch that dial. I'll see you back here in a second on RoxomTV. Stay tuned.
So, tell us about your furry friend here. What's his name?
Oh, this? This is Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
It's not just a cat, he's family.
Quite a name, and I must say, looks quite pampered.
Oh, absolutely. Bitcoin deserves nothing but the best. He's my little prince.
But with such a valuable pet, aren't you afraid of losing him?
Losing Bitcoin? No, it never happened before, so it's not something I worry about. Excuse me for a moment. Bitcoin, stay here, right?
Bitcoin, no! Bitcoin, come on, little buddy, Bitcoin, I need you. Don't go.
Security matters. Zappo Bank. The only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
Some call me Chicken Little, others Bubble Boy. I'm a bit changed, but sounds familiar, right? Let me tell you a hard truth. The S&P isn't rising, the dollar's falling. That's the trick. Monopoly money. It's ice melting by the second. Your savings, your salary, your time. Worth less every second. Everyone's using the wrong measuring stick. Switch the denominator. Price the S&P into Bitcoin. Hard, fixed, unprintable. Suddenly your unstoppable index, it's collapsing. And while you cling to dollars, well, Wall Street already switched. Before, you needed 2 brokers.
Still getting my ninja bonus though, right?
Plenty of spreadsheets. And my quant!
I hate this part.
I was right, and I'll be right again. If I were you, I'd thank me.
You know my name's Dave, right?
Welcome back to RoxomTV, everyone. My name is Walker America, and we are going to be here for the next, let's see, a little over 1 hour left in the program. We may have a special guest joining us here in a moment. We will see. I don't want to make any promises that I can't keep. But until then, I want to go over a couple of other stories here. One of them is just around the quantum narratives here with regard to Bitcoin. So let me go ahead and let's say read you guys into where we're at with this. So essentially, there's been a if you've been paying attention on X lately, you'll see that there's been quite a bit of spirited debate around Bitcoin and as it relates to quantum computing. Now, this all kind of kicked off when Nick Carter put out a couple of different pieces about basically Bitcoin's need to upgrade. Immediately the Bitcoin developers are sort of sleepwalking into this scenario. I think was one of the phrases he used, and there's a lot of really, I think he did a lot of research on this. As clearly not a dumb guy, right? And he's clearly looked into this quite a bit. He's also a VC, and he has publicly stated he's got vested interest in certain companies that are basically providing services for businesses to transition to kind of post-quantum environments. But one of the things that he said here, and I'll maybe just read this this tweet from Nick. It's that many devs flatly deny there is a problem, and many others deny that we actually need to do anything about it. These viewpoints are easily findable. Adam, referring to Adam Back, is not a physicist. That's what matters in terms of forecasting QC progress. The cryptography conclusions are obvious and do not require an expert. Neither am I, obviously, but I've actually consulted a number of world-leading physicists, some of whom will with no dog in this race. I don't believe Adam has, so I don't think he has any, quote, credential leg up on me whatsoever. Merely being technical is no help. I think Adam and other thought leaders are deliberately avoiding the discussion / trying to keep it on the gate-kept forums away from mainstream attention. They don't want to acknowledge the real nature of the threat or the fact that the necessary upgrade timelines are extremely long and it's not just a simple fix. Okay, so that's Nick's perspective, and there's been a lot of back and forth on this. So this is, I'm giving you very much like a 50,000 foot view. Now, in response to all this, now Samson Moe, the Gen Z 3.0, has called this total bullshit and VC slop designed to create a panic on shakeout weak hands, noting that quantum tech can't even factor small numbers, and yet Bitcoin will adapt without basically any rushed, risky changes. And I think this has been the point that's been pushed by Adam Back a lot as well. He's saying that Nick's warnings are essentially unhelpful, sort of self-serving FUD to pump his investment, his $6 million investment in a post-quantum startup, ignoring ongoing client research by devs in the space. Now, this is this is interesting to me because I think that ultimately what people seem to miss here, I think that the truth is in the middle, right? Now, is Bitcoin quantum FUD just like some kind of mid-curve pleb or VC slop? Uh, maybe. Now, the FUD part is, right? That is to be, let's say, specifically casting fear, uncertainty, and doubt on this. To say that devs are sleepwalking into this, to say that they're not prepared, that's just categorically not true. Now, I'm not saying that we should ignore quantum's impact. Quite the opposite. I'm just saying that this is not news and this is not new. In fact, basically, like every Bitcoin kind of Bitcoin adjacent topic or a specific Bitcoin topic, this is something that's been discussed. Quantum, the idea of quantum computing and what needs to happen to upgrade Bitcoin, it's been discussed since the Bitcoin Talk forum days. So you can see here. Here's a post from let's see, January 27th, 2011, and with a ton of discussion. The post being, what does quantum computing mean for Bitcoin? So this was, again, like just about every debate that we have in Bitcoin. It was talked about on the Bitcoin Talk forum a while ago. Now, that's not to say that the problem is solved, right? But it's just to say that this is not, again, something new, something unknown to people. There's been a ton of work around this. There's been a lot of various developer discussions happening on this. There's a lot of stuff. There's a recent, I think, summit at Presidio Bitcoin in San Francisco on this exact topic. To say that basically devs are sleepwalking into this, or that people aren't prepared for this, or that they're not going to do anything about it is just kind of ridiculous in my mind. I think that everybody who's looked into this is basically of the opinion that at some point, Bitcoin will need some changes. Devs have been saying this for years. This is not new or news. So I think where people like Adam Back and Samson Moe and not saying myself take issue is acting like there is suddenly, out of nowhere, some grave quantum threat to Bitcoin that requires action right this second. Otherwise, we're totally screwed, and everyone's ignoring it. And all of this like really kind of like sensational marketing around it. It's typically the type of language that is used. It's like you need to add, when you get the email that says you need to click this link right now and act immediately, or you're going to lose access to all of your financial accounts. And like it's a phishing email, right? It's a tactic to try and say we need to do something right now. Nobody's paying. Why is nobody talking about this? Nobody's paying attention to this. I think, and I'm not a physicist, right? Very obviously not. I'm sure Nick has read and studied on this a lot more than I have and is more knowledgeable on it. I'm not saying that he doesn't have valid points. I'm more so saying that I think that the dramatization of this, trying to say that the devs aren't doing anything, that we need to do something right this second or we're completely screwed. I think that this is ultimately just not helpful, and it's also just not true. Quantum is you could call it, as BitPain called it, he said it's an existential tail risk. Maybe I'll just quote Bitcoin here. He's saying, quantum is an existential tail risk, and you can debate the probability of a tail risk all you want. Does it really matter if it's 0.1% or 10%? Without denying that you should have a contingency plan in place. And again, I agree with that. And there are plans in place. This has been talked about, again, for quite some time here. There's been a lot of work on this. There's basically a bunch of different reviews that have been done. There's a good thread. Maybe I'll see if I can find it and bring it up later, that basically has talked about all of the different potential paths here, what could be done. The point being, I think that this is being sensationalized a little bit. I would like to assume that Nick's heart is in the right place for this. Again, I think he's done a lot of research on this, clearly. I think it's good to call attention to these things. We can debate the method in which you call attention to them and how productive that actually is, the overall discourse. But to act like nothing has been done, or nobody's paying attention to this, or developers are totally sleepwalking into it, is just a little ridiculous. Now, at the same time, it's like one of the things that is going to be very much a contentious question here, and that I think really does need reckoned with is what's going to be done. And this is to me one of the really interesting questions around the whole quantum thing is what's going to be done with the lost coins discussion. I think this is kind of the what will be the key question from let's say the social layer of this, not in terms of the technical solution, right? Technical solutions, it's a different story, but in terms of what are the implications with coins like Satoshi's coins, for example, that would basically either, if and when quantum computers become viable to the point where they could basically break into Bitcoin, the way they'd have the ability to basically to extract the private keys based on the public key. And again, I'll probably butcher some of this from the technical side, so excuse me. But the larger point here is, should those coins, Satoshi era coins or other coins that are deemed as lost, should they be allowed to be scooped up by a quantum attacker? Or should those coins be frozen? Should those UTXOs be frozen so that basically the network regards them as invalid, unspendable, essentially? What implications does that have? And I think it's going to be very interesting. It's also very interesting considering the recent discourse around some of the proposals from the Knots camp in Bitcoin with regard to freezing small UTXOs that are deemed to have engaged in spam transactions. That's kind of a different story, but it'll be interesting to see, okay, how far do you take that logic? Personally, I think it's generally a bad idea to go and try to freeze coins. One, determining whether or not coins are actually lost is a slippery slope. And also, the second you start being able to make categorical statements about these types of UTXOs are no longer valid UTXOs and can't be spent, I think that's got a lot of downstream implications that people need to think about really, really deeply. So on the quantum side of things, again, I think that people should take all of this with a grain of salt. I think that there is undoubtedly it's a discussion that needs to continue to be had, and I think that it's good that honestly, this is the great thing about the Bitcoin ecosystem more broadly, is that these things do get talked about out in public. I think ultimately, I know people are railroading Nick pretty hard right now, but I think it's a good thing that that this discussion is being had. I think it's a good thing that people are thinking deeply about it and really trying to determine, okay, what is the best path forward here for Bitcoin? What actually makes sense? And it does a great job by trying to FUD all of this, the quantum stuff. It does a great job of actually raising to people's attention what work has already been done around this, what people have already been thinking of. So I think it's pretty cool to see. Actually, it's a nice and it honestly, anything that can be done to distract, I think, from the overly tiresome Knots core drama that continues to unfold is probably a good thing. Now, again, I think that if what story is still capturing my attention the most is the Samurai wallet case, which I still think is from a existential threat perspective, the implications of that being allowed to stand are ultimately extremely damaging. I think this quantum stuff is extremely interesting. I think that we should pay a lot of attention to all of the great work that has already been done by developers looking into this and evaluating potential solution paths. And while it may be easy to write some of this stuff off to say that, well, Nick's just pumping VC slop out there trying to talk his own book, I think it's good to raise these things. You can debate whether or not they should be raised in a more constructive way or with more acknowledgments about the work that's already been done out there. But ultimately, these are conversations that need to come out into the broader ecosystem that people need to have. I think that the key point for me here is we need to acknowledge that, this is a tail risk, but there is a lot of work that's being done. This is not something that's being ignored by developers. There's been a lot of developer work on this, a lot of developer talk on it. Just because you don't always see it pumped to the top of your algorithm because it's not formulated in the form of rage bait, that doesn't mean that nothing's happening on it. I think that that's the that's true for a lot of things, right? Oftentimes there's a heck of a lot going on behind the scenes that people who are just spending all of their time on social media, getting rage baited by the algorithm, don't always see. And so it's a good reminder to take a step back and realize that perhaps things are not as immediately dire as they seem, and that ultimately Bitcoin will be okay. Like, and generally, I think as a good heuristic, trying to say that we need to do something right now and changes need to be made right this second, trying to kind of push forward hasty changes to Bitcoin in any way is just a terrible idea. This just isn't something that we should we should normalize. Changes to Bitcoin are very serious and should be taken as such. Again, I don't think anybody's denying the tail risk that quantum poses. Maybe some people are. I can't speak for everyone, but it is a tail risk, sure. But let's be realistic about what the time frame is for that. Let's be realistic about what our solution path timeline would be, and let's be realistic about what the actual threat is in this particular moment, and the reality of where quantum computers are right now versus how quickly that development may accelerate. We'll see. Maybe I'll be eating my words, and we all should have listened to Nick right now and done something right this moment. And quantum is gonna crack Bitcoin here in the next 5 minutes. But I don't know. For now, I'm holding my breath. But I am glad that these discussions are being had. They're certainly interesting. They certainly do make for good memes as well. I think that's one thing that we all come out of this being a little bit richer for is having at least some good memes coming out of it. On another topic, just as a side note here, it's interesting to see Senator Cynthia Lummis, who is, I think, probably the most pro-Bitcoin senator that we had. She's now going to be not running for re-election. She said basically some of her priorities changed with personal family life. So she doesn't have another 6 years in her, and she's going to be no longer seeking re-election. So I think I got a chance to meet Senator Lummis a couple of times. I'm no fan of politicians broadly. I will say that Senator Lummis always struck me as a real class act, and as truly a great advocate for Bitcoin, someone who is genuinely extremely based, has been advocating on behalf of Bitcoin and Bitcoin only, not broadly crypto, for a long time. And as I often said, I'd rather have a Senate full of Senator Lummises than Senator Warrens. Unfortunately, we lost our Senator Lummis now, or we will be losing our Senator Lummis. So hopefully we'll get some more people in who are closer in alignment to Senator Lummis than to Elizabeth Warren. We'll see what happens there, but yeah, that just wanted to note that, because I think it is important to when politicians do things that we like, that are good and operate in a principled way, like from everything that I've seen, Senator Lummis has and does, we should applaud that. There are plenty of bad politicians out there who we can deride, but when we see politicians who are genuinely trying to do something good and advocate on behalf of Bitcoin, I think that it's really important to call that out and say that they did an excellent job. So thank you to Senator Lummis. Maybe I hope that now Senator Lummis, as she enters retirement, she can perhaps start a Bitcoin podcast. I know that I would be a listener. Would love to hear that. On the Senate side as well, recently an Arizona senator Wendy Rogers introduced 2 bills and one resolution aimed at changing how Bitcoin and, quote, crypto assets are taxed under Arizona law. So SB 1044 would amend state statutes to exempt virtual currency from taxation, meaning digital assets would no longer be taxed under the current tax code definitions. SCR 1003 is a state constitutional resolution that would amend Arizona's constitution to specifically exclude virtual currency from property tax definitions. Finally, SB 1045 would prohibit counties, cities, and towns from imposing taxes, fees, or fines on individuals or entities running nodes. And then the tax exemption bill, that's the SB 1044, and the constitutional resolution, SCR 1003, would require approval by Arizona voters in November 2026 general elections before taking effect. But I think this is great to see this kind of stuff, and you see more of this sort of state versus federal dynamic playing out, I think, and you will continue to see more of this playing out in the months and years to come. The great thing about the United States of America is that we do have 50 states. That those states do have the federal government. Let me say this was never supposed to be this big. The federal government is bloated beyond all recognition. It is far too large. Every government should be smaller. Full stop. And guys, I'm going to pause here for a second because I see that actually, and I just noticed this. I hope these guys haven't been waiting here too long, but we do have two guests here who are going to be joining us. I'm going to bring them up on the stage right now. Nathan from BDC Mentor and Gary Mahmood, also from BDC Mentor. Guys, I'm so sorry. I've been ranting here and I didn't even see you down there below the stage. How are you guys doing?
Doing very well, Walker. We just wanted to wrap up the live stream and just wanted to come over and wish you a Merry Christmas and jump in here for a second. We did bring Mr. Sessions, but he got pulled away from kids, and I had to jump soon as well too. But we wanted to make sure that we took a second to wish you well and come join the conversation.
Well, I very much appreciate it, and it's been a nice one here today. I've just been able to rant to myself, which is always a good time. But the problem is that I end up going a little bit long. But guys, I'd love to get your thought. One of the things that I was just talking about right before I brought you guys up here on stage was around the quantum debate currently happening in Bitcoin. Not sure how much of it you caught. Would love your guys' take on it though. Is this quantum FUD just mid-curve VC pleb slop? Is there something here? What's your read on it?
Yes, more or less. I do think that there is something that we need to address and be aware of, and we should always be thinking adversarial, right? There'll be other threats that come up that we haven't thought of before. This is how Bitcoin improves. This is how we harden ourselves. This is how we move to the future, having the most scarce, the most important asset we need to protect. In terms of Nick, directly, he's got direct investments in this, and I think that's exactly where it's coming from. We have the option to upgrade over time. This is something that's been discussed since 2012. I went back and I could find posts from 2012 of this first being brought up as a potential threat. So I
found 2011 on Bitcoin.
There you go.
2011.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So that's 16 years that this has been something to concern ourselves with. And again, it's not that we should completely dismiss it, but do not think that this is an immediate threat. I don't think that's going to be, I think even a 5 or 10 year time horizon is really optimistic. It very much reminds me of blockchain technology, or the ice caps are melting, or Iran is 6 months away from a nuclear weapon, or 2 weeks to flatten the curve. It feels like marketing talk. They're trying to push me into a direction, push me to an action one way or the other. Yes, we should be thinking about it. Yes, should be planning and kind of getting our heads around it. So I think we have a ton of runway, particularly if you're using native SegWit and you're not reusing addresses, so that signature is only ever used once, your signature that could maybe potentially expose the private key with quantum computing some point down the line. If we're following those best practices, which most wallets do by default, we got time. The biggest risk to your Bitcoin right now isn't quantum. It's you not telling your family how to access it if something happens to you. It's you being stupid with it and thinking oh, I can get a yield on this maybe. Or perhaps this person will double my Bitcoin. Saylor said he was going to. The biggest risk to Bitcoin is your own lack of understanding. And the quantum FUD is something that is it's an information asymmetry trying to take advantage of that as well. So yeah, let's discuss it. We can go through the philosophy of what to do with Satoshi's coins. I was listening to you backstage talk about. I have my very strong feelings about that. For me, it's very much it's treasure hunters, right? If you find a gold chest on the bottom of the ocean, that isn't depriving anybody of their property rights. It's almost like homesteading. It's totally fine. And we were just chatting on beforehand, Gary and Ben and I, there's an element of one, it's again, there's no property rights violation in my opinion. 2, you don't actually know that they're going to sell them. If they went to all that trouble to get that Bitcoin, they may not actually be selling it. So don't think for a second it's going to necessarily dump the price. And one of the other things that I realized when we were chatting beforehand was that it would be actually, in some ways, it would be really nice if Satoshi's coins could be taken by quantum. Because that whole what happens if he moves his coins? Well, that's done with now. And number 2, the ability to actually identify who he was, I think, is permanently lost at that point. Because if everybody can get access to his private keys, then having the private keys no longer determines the identity, which means he will then remain a mystery. Gary, I know you have lots to add there.
I have so little to add. Nathan knows so much. I was just saying on our other show that I know nothing about quantum. I know sort of enough to sound like I know what I'm talking about, but Yeah, I don't know. I guess I just try to take solace in the fact that there are a lot of people a lot smarter than I am, who have a lot more money than I am, including individuals and institutions that continue to invest in Bitcoin. So, if they're putting all this money into it, I mean, I don't want to just base my decisions and viewpoint about what everybody else is doing, but I can't imagine I'd be putting in tens or hundreds of millions or billions of dollars into something that I thought would be done for in like a 3 to 5 year time frame where people would panic sell before then. I mean, that doesn't seem like a smart investment. I don't know. On the flip side, I was listening to, Charles Edwards and Preston Pish on We Study Billionaires a couple months ago, and Edwards was saying, listen, this, I don't know, this could be like a 40% chance that it's a problem in 5 years. And in order to migrate everybody over to quantum proof addresses could be like a 12 to 18 month thing. And it's everybody would have to agree on what the solution is, then getting everybody to migrate over. And, Bitcoiners are like libertarians. It's like herding cats to get everybody to agree on what the actual answer is. So I don't know. It's a long way to say, I don't know. Nathan knows more than I do. I'm sure you know more than I do. I'm just here for the friendship.
I just want to add one more quick thing there, Walker, too. It really reminds me of when people come up and go like, well, what if there's no electricity? And what if there's no internet? It's like, yeah, but what if you were trapped in an existing system where they constantly stole from you every year and funded wars basically in your name, and people will blame you for that as well, too, to just throw chaos and evil all across the world. That's pretty bad as it is, right? The existing system, like, we're not comparing it to like Bitcoin that is quantum vulnerable and something else that's not quantum vulnerable. We're comparing it to Bitcoin, which may hypothetically at some point be quantum vulnerable if we do absolutely nothing and don't act like humans, to a tyrannical evil system covered in the blood of the innocent that is stealing from you guaranteed every year. It's like, take your chances with Bitcoin.
Man, I'm going to put my money back behind a 4-digit PIN code. Back in the bank it goes.
Yeah, that seems secure. No, I first of all, Gary, I appreciate the humility, because I think a lot of people would be better served if they often said, you know what, I'm just not quite sure. But that's hard to say. And Nathan, to your points, I think you're spot on. I think that broadly, and this is what I was saying earlier, is that anytime someone is telling you, when you get an email that tells you, you need to click this link right now or something really terrible is going to happen.
Yep.
Trying to force rush decisions is generally not a good sign. That's not to say that every single time someone says you need to do something right now, it's always bad. Maybe it's you need to get out of the way because there's a car about to hit you right now. Okay, like that's, you shouldn't be like, are you trying to fish me? Like, okay, yeah, they're just trying to get you out of the way of the car. But in a lot of cases with this kind of stuff, and Nick has disclosed that he has interests in companies that are actively trying to provide solutions for this. Okay, he's it's been disclosed on his website. He stated it as well. That doesn't mean that that's not obviously impacting his decision. Of course, he is talking his book to a certain extent. It also, reminds me like the Y2K bug, right? Like it was like a legitimate bug. Like it was a legitimate bug. Something needed to be done, but something like was done. But I'm forgetting the guy's name. There's a couple of great documentaries on this, but there's multiple people who made entire careers out of going around and Y2K fudding, basically.
Yep.
And like selling prepper packs for it and all these different things. As
Al Gore, right? Like I'm immediately reminded of that whole saga.
Exactly. And so that's not to, again, I'm not saying that's what Nick is doing. I think that honestly, it's what he has done is brought this to the forefront, brought this conversation to the forefront, and given a lot of people the opportunity to say, hey, actually, look, here's what's been discussed about this. We've been talking about this. We've been having, the Presidio Bitcoin just had a forum on this. We've been looking into this. We're not sleepwalking this. We're actively working on this. We know it needs to be done. So that's actually a good thing. Maybe that was his sly goal, was just to actually elevate the discourse amongst Bitcoin developers and make sure that people are aware of all the developments that are happening right now. Perhaps that was his goal. But so I think it's ultimately a net, having these debates, anytime there's debates like this, I think it's a beneficial thing because it allows the cream to rise to the top. It allows people to see what is actually being done. It allows people to understand that, look, nobody's asleep at the wheel here. Also, like, there's not just one wheel, right? Bitcoin's rough consensus is messy, but people are aware of this. This isn't news. This isn't new. This has been something that's been a point of discussion. Again, earliest post I found was Bitcoin Talk 2011, January of 2011. Like and there's hundreds and hundreds of comments in this thread about this. People going back and forth. So I'm glad that we're talking about it. honestly, it's a nice departure from the knots and core debate.
Yeah.
A lot.
We'll
of,
get
I've
into
seen
that
some
later.
people. Exactly. I've seen some people theorize that this is actually just Nick trying to distract from knots and core, which I'm like that. This is funny.
The Dark Knight move, right? The hero
Exactly.
we need. Yeah.
Exactly. But either way, I'm glad that we're having the conversation. I think that it's a positive thing to discuss it, and it allows ultimately all the work that is being done around this to rise to the top and be seen by people who otherwise would just go on thinking, oh boy, I guess nobody's paying attention to this threat. Because that's, I think, what probably most people thought until they started seeing responses from developers in the community who were like, hey, no, like I personally am working on this, or I'm looking into this, whatever. So I think it's a net benefit in that regard.
I agree. And I'd also want to like add to it, like a bit of like a quick heuristic as well too. It's like, are you arguing about quantum FUD with somebody who A, doesn't have Bitcoin, or B, doesn't hold their keys? Because like realistically, it's something worth considering. It's like, okay, you're concerned about someone having access to your Bitcoin, but you don't have access to Bitcoin. Not going to weigh that opinion very heavily.
Yeah. No, I think that that's totally fair. And like, again, there's a lot of ways that you should, I hope this is just help educate people about general best practices. Like, just don't reuse addresses, guys. As one thing, like you should not be reusing addresses anyway. And I feel like a lot of people still do not get that part, but like, don't reuse addresses. Just click the little refresh button and generate a new address. And depending on what wallet you're using, hopefully they give you a way to label the addresses that you do use, because that's a super convenient feature. I like Wasabi Wallet for that. You can also do some CoinJoin in there if you so choose. But yeah, so it's good that these best practices are really coming to light as a result of this. What else are you guys tracking right now as we go into the the end of the year here? Nathan, you and I have been going back and forth for now basically since Bitcoin started dipping down. We're down on the year right now. We're down on the year maybe 6 to 8%.
7%, I think last
7%.
Yeah, 7.99 right now. Yep.
Meanwhile, I mean, silver guys, gold's like, annoying little brother is at $71.21 right now. It's up it's up 140% on the year. Yep. 140% of the year. The silver bugs, which I didn't even know they still existed, but they do. I don't know if they call them silver bugs or what they call them, but they're just jubilant. They're called loners? Right now. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. I can't. Yeah, maybe something like that. But I mean, gold is up 71% of the year. So silver's up double what gold is. They're both up. Well, they're in the green, and Bitcoin is in the red on the year. What's your read on this? Is this again just like, are we at this place where the market is just kind of like ignoring Bitcoin, and this represents an opportunity? Or is it just over, guys? Is silver are you selling all your Bitcoin to whatever you didn't lose in a boating accident? Are you selling it all to get quantum safe silver? I mean, silver in your vault can't be hacked by a quantum computer, guys. So you think about that.
Good branding. Great title there too, Walker. Well done. I want to get Gary's take on that, but I'll give you my quick one too, like the easy framework, because I very much view the precious metals kind of sound money camp as the pessimistic side, and then Bitcoin is kind of the optimistic sound money camp as well. So to me, it kind of all fits naturally with what I would expect, is that things really haven't broken yet, but we see like money printer on the horizon, like nobody's business. New Fed governor, new Fed chair. We've got, again, there's 50-year mortgages. We've got like stimmy checks talked about from tariffs. We've got the every account for somebody born. Like, they're very clearly gearing up that they want more liquidity in the system. And we're seeing problems in Japan, which began, and we saw problems where they were talking about not enough reserves, which is kind of bullshit, but still there. So we're seeing money problems. And the response to money problems is to take it from that wonderful video. They're going to smash the big red button. Money printer coming up. So I think what we're seeing here is gold and silver rightfully responding with a pessimistic viewpoint, saying there's a debasement going on here. They are going to print so much fucking money. And so people are moving into gold and silver. I think with Bitcoin, it is the liquidity sponge a little bit more than the pre-roll, meaning that Bitcoin's price action is probably reminiscent of like, yeah, something on the horizon is coming. When it comes and they respond, it will absorb everything. That's why it follows. I think gold is telling you what they're going to do in response to an issue that's going to crop up. I think Bitcoin is telling you the issue is coming and we're going to see it soon, and it will respond and follow the two and likely exceed the two, but it turns on when the money printer turns on. It's waiting for the liquidity taps to get opened up. It's waiting for that kind of crisis moment, that COVID crash, right? It's waiting for the bad thing to happen and then for regulators and governments to respond. Then it will just rip. And you probably will see a rotation out of precious metals into Bitcoin.
Gary, what about you?
I mean, to your question of should people be taking their money out of Bitcoin and putting it in precious metals or gold or silver or whatever. As much as I really try in life to try to keep a level head and keep my emotions out of decisions, with Bitcoin, it's just impossible for me to do that in the sense that I'm not just in it for number go up, as I know many people here aren't. So for me, it's not just about finding the best, short to medium term investment. I have to have my money in Bitcoin because I have to have it succeed. If there's no Bitcoin, if this project doesn't work, can I swear on here? Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm fucking black-pilled. Like that's it. Like there is no hope. The government's going to just control all the wealth. It's going to print to infinity. It's going to centralize everything because silver, gold, they can all be centralized in paper, and government that they can, miscount everything. And we're just going to have fewer freedoms. And I mean, you know where I'm going with this. I can just go down this horrible, horrible path. And Bitcoin, I feel, is the real only salvation to this. So as much as I'd like to try to separate that out and make an informed, completely, abstract argument about, well, let me take my emotions out of it. I can't. I'm in Bitcoin because if this doesn't work, I got nothing, man. So no, I'm not leaving Bitcoin because I want a better future for myself, my kids, their kids, and it's this or nothing. So sorry.
Yeah. Ride or die.
Amen. And I think the points that both of you kind of raised that's really valid is this all does come back to just larger uncertainty, institutional trust going down, and whatever, whatever label you want to put on it. People are losing faith in government paper, or they know that, the one thing they do have faith in when it comes to government paper is that the government's going to create more paper, right? They're going to keep on kicking that can down the road. And I think that people are understandably looking for escape valves, right? They're looking for a lifeboat, and gold and silver they're the ones that are most familiar. Like it's, gold especially, it's the silver one's funny because I mean, obviously, like it has a bunch of industrial uses and all these things too, but like it's a worse money than gold. It's a worse store of value than gold. It's just like, it's very interesting to see the bid that it's catching right now. And I think, again, if you're looking short term, like over this year, it's like, man, that sucks, like, boy, but like, that's if you're denominating it in fiat, right? Now, granted, if you're denominating it in Bitcoin, sure, could you buy more Bitcoin with your silver right now if you had it? Yeah, I mean, maybe it's a good time to convert some of those that silver to take them down to your local silver depot and get some dollars for them, and then trade those dollars, for Bitcoin. Because silver doesn't make a very good medium of exchange on its own. But point being, people are looking for some sort of way to exit. They're looking for some way to hedge against uncertainty, monetary, geopolitical, what have you. And they look at gold and silver, and that's what's comfortable to them. It's what they know. Bitcoin is still this, even though it is, yes, the adoption has grown, even though you've got ETFs and Larry Fink's talking about it, and it doesn't matter because most people still don't own it. And even of the people who maybe own it, even fewer understand it. And even of the people who understand it, they will be the first to admit that, I'm still wrapping my head around it. You know what I mean? And so it's like, I think we're just really early in this, but to me, this represents, we're going to look back at this, and Nathan, you and I have been saying this since that first stream we did together. We're going to look back on this and say, wow, what an incredible opportunity that was to stack at a discount while everybody else was buying silver, buying gold, I don't know, buying treasuries. If you're a boomer, I guess. But like, are you still of that opinion that basically like this, we're going to look back at this in the not so distant future and say, "Whew, what a time that was." Either glad I stacked or wish I would have stacked more.
Oh yeah, definitely wish I would have stacked more, but I'm always limited by the fact that I'm poor, so that's just the issue there. Which absolutely, and I still think it is too. And let's not discount that, like, in the same way that like the tech stocks and Nvidia and AI has really captured the no coin or the normie land attention, like the CNBC, what they're talking about in terms of stocks. So people pile in. People like to follow the herd because they feel safe in the herd, which, you know, in some respects in a market that kind of makes sense until things go wrong. The same sort of things happening with gold and silver as well. Gold ripping has been catching everyone's attention. Why? Because it's a warning sign. Usually, of something bad going to happen, like not so much an insurance hedge, sorry, not so much an inflation hedge, but like insurance against chaos. And so if gold's ripping, it's catching everyone's attention because it's, again, one of the longest running monies that we've had. So it's going to have the interest of everyone that's involved, and it's going to make it into the news round. And then normies are going to start to get worried and freaked out too. We saw like Costco was selling out of like gold ounces, right? They're selling their own gold bars. So I think there's an element of the fever snowballing on top of itself. That as more people pile into it, it gets more exciting, and we keep kind of running up that curve. And I expect that to continue for a little bit here. But the reason it was so exciting is because it was so boring for 10 years as well, too, because it didn't do anything for 10 years. And I expect that kind of normalcy to return.
Best time to buy anything is peak hype.
Yeah, boy. I mean, you look at this right now and it's like, I don't know. I don't think that silver is just going to run forever. I think gold's going to keep on chugging along, but like, boy, I would feel very uncomfortable piling into silver right now. It's just, again, with these things, it's like, okay, this comes back to Peter Schiff talking about, well, Bitcoin has no utility value, right? I mean, besides just being unconfiscatable, uncensorable, undebasable money.
Those are minor points.
Yeah, minor points. But, you can't make jewelry out of it. You can't use it for electronics, and you can with gold and silver. It's like, yeah, that makes it worse money, not better money to have those properties. Like, but, again, the information asymmetry here, the fact that most people still will be like, well, Bitcoin, I can't touch it. So how can it have value if I can't hold it in my hand like I can with a gold coin? That's just to your advantage if you're here and you're paying attention. But again, most people just aren't paying attention yet. They will be, but right now they're it's not developers that are sleepwalking. It is everybody who does not own Bitcoin right at this moment. Because I think we are gearing up. Whether you look at kind of Lynn Alden's gradual print thesis or how that dovetails into Lawrence Lepard's big print thesis, the common theme is print.
Yep.
The common theme is, as Lynn Alden says, nothing stops this train, right? We know that they have to keep expanding liquidity. We know that they have to keep injecting more units of fiat into the economy, not just in the US, but around the world. And this thing only goes one way, right? They're not all of a sudden going to get super fiscally responsible and cut entitlement programs across the entire world. It's just not going to happen. Governments are as big as they've ever been, and they will keep getting bigger and more bloated. Entitlement programs and social welfare around the world is as big as it's ever been and will keep getting bigger. The money supply is as big as it's ever been in unit terms and will keep getting bigger. And there's only one thing that's a measuring stick that you can actually look at and say, this is my denominator, and that's Bitcoin.
No, 100%. Even just look at the growing chaos as well, too, right? Not only are they going to continue printing, but things are getting more and more unstable, and it's going to continue to get more unstable and more chaotic as we go into this, because the one weapon that they have to keep using it more and more and more. It goes back to that drug addict kind of analogy, right? Go back to 2008. It was 800 billion. The response was 800 billion, still in the billions, right? It's going to be trillions upon trillions. We know exactly where they're going with all this, and it increases to get less and less unstable. The Preston Pish's analogy of like contractions getting closer and closer together, I think, just really hits home in this. I mean, today I was looking at apparently we're going into Greenland. So Greenland, watch out for some freedom coming your way. We had talks of Venezuela, but that looked like a troll by Trump, which is quite interesting that he did not end up talking about that. We have Netanyahu meeting back with Trump, I believe, to discuss Iran coming up here. We saw the ongoing We have the ongoing Ukraine and Russia. Like, we've so normalized the amount of chaos that is caused by this system, and their only response to it is to just continue to make it worse, because that's all they have. So we know where it's going. We know what's going to happen, and I know exactly where I'm going to stay.
Yeah, you in uncertain times, you want something that is certain, and Bitcoin is about the only thing that we found that does give us a meaningful degree of certainty. Because I'm sorry, but I mean, even on the gold side, it's like this is something that many folks have talked about. Pierre Richard always puts this really well, though, and it's important, I think, for people as they see silver, silver's price mooning, as they see gold continuing to chug along upwards. It's important to note that when the price of silver or gold goes up, gold and silver miners mine more silver and gold because it's more profitable for them to do so. So they bring more out of the ground. The issuance increases. With Bitcoin, you can't do that. When the price goes up, the same amount of new Bitcoin are released into circulation every 10 minutes with each block. And that's one of the reasons why, Bitcoin is volatile in fiat terms, but like I can't imagine that silver is going to just kind of basically stay right up here elevated and chug along and be just totally boring. Maybe silver just goes up forever. Maybe silver, 1 ounce of silver will be worth a whole Bitcoin someday. And it's like, no, like we know what's going to happen. There's going to be a ton of manipulation in the precious metals market because there's a lot of paper metal that's trading out there too. We know there's usually a lot of manipulation. I think it was JP Morgan traders, could have been any of the other big bankers though. So don't sue me, JP Morgan. But they had very famously were paid massive fines for manipulation of precious metals markets. This happens all the time. That's just the ones they got caught doing.
Yep.
But again, when the price goes up, they will dig more out of the ground. It's just what's going to happen. They increase the flow, right? The flow doesn't increase with Bitcoin. And I feel like, again, we say these things and we all know this, but we forget sometimes that the majority of the world doesn't. The majority of the world is still operating from a place where this is news to them, or hearing it put that way is like, oh, well, I didn't think about it like that. Because the majority of the world just isn't ready yet. But who knows? Maybe enough people they'll get the gift of an orange pill this year for Christmas as Bitcoiners go around and spend time around their families and try to orange pill their stubborn Uncle Jim one more time. But guys, I know I know you guys both, I think, got to jump here. I appreciate you both coming on. Anything you guys want to close with before I bid you adieu? And I want to thank you guys again for jumping on. Wish you both Merry Christmas. But anything else you guys want to close with before you need to head out here?
No, I just want to end with just Merry Christmas, everybody. Like it's been a crazy year. Next year will be crazy as well too. And I'm so grateful for all the wonderful Bitcoiners that we have on these streams and in the chats and on Twitter and on Nostr. So just much love and Merry Christmas, Gary.
Happy Hanukkah.
All right, guys, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Make sure to check out BTC Mentor with Nathan and Gary on the BTC Sessions YouTube channel. I know you know where to find it, and if you haven't gone, you should subscribe there because it is the best resource as far as Bitcoin education and hands-on Bitcoin knowledge goes. So do check out BTC Sessions and the BTC or Bitcoin Mentor show on that channel. Guys, thank you so much. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Happy whatever you celebrate, and appreciate you guys very much. We're going to go to a quick commercial break, and then I will be back to round out the show. Thanks, guys. Stay tuned to everyone else. We'll be right back.
Later.
So, tell us about your furry friend here. What's his name?
Oh, this? This is Bitcoin.
Bitcoin?
It's not just a cat, he's family.
Quite a name, and I must say, looks quite pampered.
Oh, absolutely. Bitcoin deserves nothing but the best. He's my little prince.
But with such a valuable pet, aren't you afraid of losing him?
Losing Bitcoin? No, it never happened before, so it's not something I worry about. Excuse me for a moment. Bitcoin, stay here, right?
Bitcoin, no! Bitcoin, come on, little buddy, Bitcoin, I need you. Don't go.
Security matters. Zappo Bank. The only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
Some call me Chicken Little, others Bubble Boy. I'm a bit changed, but sounds familiar, right? Let me tell you a hard truth. The S&P isn't rising, the dollar's falling. That's the trick. Monopoly money. It's ice melting by the second. Your savings, your salary, your time. Worth less every second. Everyone's using the wrong measuring stick. Switch the denominator. Price the S&P into Bitcoin. Hard, fixed, unprintable. Suddenly your unstoppable index, it's collapsing. And while you cling to dollars, well, Wall Street already switched. Before, you needed 2 brokers.
Still getting my ninja bonus though, right?
Plenty of spreadsheets. And my quant!
I hate this part.
I was right, and I'll be right again. If I were you, I'd thank me.
You know my name's Dave, right?
Welcome back to RoxomTV, everyone. My name is Walker America. I am here with you every Tuesday from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're getting near the end of our show here. We've talked about a lot today, from Bitcoin quantum FUD to the Epstein files, rather lackluster recent release, to Donald Trump moving marijuana from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3 drug, and a lot of other things in between. Battleships, silver breaking its all-time high, reaching above $70, now sitting at, what are we at right now? $71.30. Congratulations to the silver bugs or silver bulls or whatever you guys call yourselves. And maybe I'll end with this as we enter here into the getting close up. Only a little bit of time left until Christmas Eve tomorrow, Christmas Day in 2 days, New Year right around the corner. It's a good time to remember that the best gift that you can give yourself and your family for your future is to save in Bitcoin. We are talking a lot more about general world news on this show of late, and we'll continue to do so. But it's always going to have a Bitcoin through line to it. And really, if we're kind of looping together all these topics that we talked about here today, from whether it be the people fleeing to silver and gold, while Bitcoin sort of languishes and is looking like it may end the year down a couple of percentage points, or if we talk about all of the Orwellian policies put forward by the United Kingdom, by Australia, by the UK, if we talk about the prosecution and persecution of open source software developers like Keone Rodriguez and Bill Hill, if we talk about the absolute mess around trying to get any truth out of these or unredacted files out of the Epstein files, any of this all comes down to the fact that we're entering a period of intense upheaval, chaos, change. We are in the midst of a fourth turning. There's a number of cycles that are converging right now, whether that be Ray Dalio's long-term debt cycle, whether that be fiat currency life cycles, whether that be the turning generational cycles, a number of others. We're entering a time period where things are going to continue to get chaotic. And I think if you approach everything you see in the news, on social media, even in just your in-person interactions with people, if you approach it through the lens of expecting that you're going to find increased chaos in all aspects of society, things start to make a lot more sense. If you're wondering why things feel so crazy right now, it's because things are coming to a head. What happens next remains to be seen, but it will continue to be a period of intense chaos and upheaval that will ultimately culminate, and things would hopefully get a little bit less crazy after that. But that doesn't mean that it's going to get be any easier to go through this kind of tumultuous period. And so what I would say is that right now, again, I don't give financial advice, but from a monetary advice perspective, in terms of what is the best money, we know that Bitcoin is the best money. If there's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin, then nobody can ever create more. We know that while people are right now piling into gold and silver, and that's great. Very happy for the Peter Schiffs of the world and whoever you silver bugs are out there. It's a good reminder that there's still, if you are watching this program right now, if you are paying attention to Bitcoin, if you own any Bitcoin, if you have even one Satoshi right now, you have more Bitcoin than the vast majority of the world, high 90% of the world. Most people, almost everybody owns no Bitcoin right now. So if you own even a little bit of Bitcoin, you are ahead of the curve. If you're aware of what the actual long-term implications are of Bitcoin, if you actually look at it from the freedom go up standpoint, not just the number go up standpoint, then out of that tiny, 1% of people that actually maybe own Bitcoin in the world, you are of an even more rarefied breed. You are of the breed of people that actually knows what Bitcoin can do for you, for your family, for the world, the implications that it has on a grander scale. To remind people that number go up is a Trojan horse for freedom go up. Number go up is what brings people to Bitcoin, which is why I think we haven't seen as much general, adoption from our fellow plebs, from retail, as it's often called this year, because honestly, Bitcoin from most people's perspective has been boring. I mean, silver has done 150% almost this year, while Bitcoin has decreased. So the number go up marketing hasn't been working so well. But that doesn't mean that all of the incredible work that's being done on the freedom go up side in the background is negated. Quite the contrary. It gives developers, builders, creators more of an opportunity to build and to create and to develop with a little bit less noise around them. When there are opportunities like this, I haven't been in Bitcoin for that long, but one thing I have realized in that time is when everybody else is bearish, when everybody else seems to be capitulating, to be writing it off, to be, even the most ardent Bitcoin bulls are somehow turning bearish, that is your best opportunity to stack some sats at a discount. And so, not only is Bitcoin a great gift to give yourself and your family for your future, but the knowledge of Bitcoin is a great thing to give to your family, your extended family, as you're sitting around. I'm not asking you to be that Bitcoin guy that refuses to talk about anything else but Bitcoin. I've certainly been that guy before, but I found that's not often the most effective way to orange pill people to Bitcoin. You can't actually force somebody to take the orange pill. They have to want to take it themselves. The best thing that you can do is live your best Bitcoin life, and make it clear that you are always open to talking about it, but try not to be the one who brings it up first all the time, at least. It doesn't always go over so well, but I promise you that your friends and family who may have been ignoring Bitcoin, they will be coming back and knocking at your door. You will be getting those text messages as soon as Bitcoin starts to run up again. We all know it. It happens every time. People don't want it now when it's cheap. They want it when it's expensive, because humans are funny. But if you're paying attention to this right now, you have the opportunity to get it for cheap. So that is always a great time to buy, is when everybody else is feeling bearish. But if you have your DCA set up, you don't even need to worry about it. You know that you're already getting more Bitcoin, more sats for your dollar than you did the day before. So hey, that's a good thing. As we end this show, $87,666 per Bitcoin. Not the year ending that I think a lot of people thought, but perhaps it's the one we needed and the one we deserved. So what I'd like to end with is this. Merry Christmas to everybody. Thank you so much for watching the show. I'll be back again next week. Again, at the same scheduled time, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. EST on Tuesdays, every Tuesday. Maybe adding a couple of more shows throughout the week here as well as we get into the new year. Stay tuned on that. Until then, make sure to follow Roxom at RoxomTV on X. Check out their YouTube channel as well, and appreciate all of you guys being here. It's been a heck of a year. We still got a few days left. Anything can happen. As we mentioned earlier in the show, a lot of options expiring here on the 26th. I think that's Boxing Day too for the non-US folks. I'm still not exactly sure what Boxing Day is, but it's something to do with Christmas. That's as much as I know. Thank you guys for watching. Appreciate it. Stay humble out there. Stack sats. Have a very Merry Christmas. And until next Tuesday, stay tuned. I am Walker America. Again, this is RoxomTV. It's been a pleasure being with you here today, and I look forward to doing it all over again next week. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
So, tell us about your furry friend here. What's his name?
Oh, this? This is Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
It's not just a cat, he's family.
Quite a name, and I must say, looks quite pampered.
Oh, absolutely. Bitcoin deserves nothing but the best. He's my little prince.
But with such a valuable pet, aren't you afraid of losing him?
Losing Bitcoin? No, it never happened before, so it's not something I worry about. Excuse me for a moment. Bitcoin, stay here, right?
Bitcoin, no! Bitcoin, come on, little buddy, Bitcoin, I need you. Don't go.
Security matters. Zappo Bank. The only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
Some call me Chicken Little, others Bubble Boy. I'm a bit changed, but sounds familiar, right? Let me tell you a hard truth. The S&P isn't rising, the dollar's falling. That's the trick. Monopoly money. It's ice melting by the second. Your savings, your salary, your time. Worth less every second. Everyone's using the wrong measuring stick. Switch the denominator. Price the S&P into Bitcoin. Hard, fixed, unprintable. Suddenly your unstoppable index, it's collapsing. And while you cling to dollars, well, Wall Street already switched. Before, you needed 2 brokers.
Still getting my ninja bonus though, right?
Plenty of spreadsheets. And my quant!
I hate this part.
I was right, and I'll be right again. If I were you, I'd thank me.
You know my name's Dave, right?